Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025. The game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. It is a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Caroline Fenton is here today. Hello, Caroline.
Hello. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Ian Safar is here. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
Let's get to work, people. So, first and foremost, Julio Jones out on Sunday against the Jags, Mike Vrabel announcing earlier today. So, you've taken on $15 million in salary, you gave up a second-round pick, and now Julio has missed 2 of your first 5 games. I think somebody said before the start of the season, before you made that trade, said, remember Julio's old and hurt. And everybody said, no, Jared, no, Jared, no, Jared. And last week I said they're going to lose to the Jets, and the Jets game was scaring me, and everybody said, no, Jared, no, Jared, no, Jared. So I'm going to say something today. Let's start the show with this. And I want everybody to listen clearly, because this is how radio works. You say something, somebody hears it a certain way, then starts saying, you said something, you didn't. It's kind of like playing the game telephone. We remember that?
Love that game.
Okay. That's how you sit there and say, if Tannehill was anybody else and threw that interception, he should go to the bench, and then them saying, you said Tannehill should be benched. That's not what I said. So I want everybody to listen to this very clearly. I get that Julio Jones is hurt. I get that Brett Kern is hurt and is out. I get that the offensive line was hurt in training camp, hasn't gelled yet. I understand that. I get that there's a new offensive coordinator who may or may not be good. I get that the rookie first-round pick, Caleb Farley, has been hurt this season, and Bud Dupree admitted yesterday that he rushed himself back and he shouldn't have done that. I get all that. If the Titans lose on Sunday, keyword in that, Caroline?
If
the Titans lose on Sunday, I am done with the 2021 Tennessee Titans. There are no more excuses this year. So I understand that it's early in the season, and I understand that teams can get better, and I understand the Titans have been hurt, and I understand all of it. But if you lose this game, given the circumstances that you just lost to the Jets, that you've got the gauntlet, Buffalo on a Monday night, Kansas City, L.A. on a Sunday night, the Indianapolis Colts to wrap up the rest of the month, if you lose to the crappy Jacksonville Jaguars that are currently in the middle of a scandal that their head coach put them in and did not squash at any point this week, if you lose to that team, done. You're not making the playoffs. You're not winning the division. And even if you do those things simply because the rest of your division is awful, you are not competing with Baltimore or Cleveland or the Chargers or the Bills or the Chiefs. I know. Every year that the Titans have gone on to have a good season, they lost some head scratcher along the way. In 1999, they lost to Jeff Garcia in for Steve Young and a not very good San Francisco 49er team. And they went to the Super Bowl. They lost to the Ravens on the first night of Hanukkah that year, 41-14, and again ended up making the playoffs. In 2000, their best team, 13-3, they lost a game at Jacksonville to a not very good Jags team because Al Del Greco couldn't make a field goal. They lost to Steve Spurrier when he was the head coach at Washington in 2002, and they ended up in the AFC title game. And they got embarrassed by the Jacksonville Jags and lost 16-0 to Denver in 2019 and ended up in the AFC title game. I get it. It's a long season. You go back to all those Patriot years, they lost games early in the year and rebounded to win the Super Bowl. They lost 31-0 to the Buffalo Bills week 1 of 2003, and they won the Super Bowl. So like I said, I get it. But there just comes a point in time where you do something that is so bad that you can't have faith in anybody anymore. Anytime you hire somebody, anytime you start a marriage, anytime you put your faith into somebody else, there are conditions to it. Like, there is a condition when you get married to somebody that, hey, If you go crazy and you stop showing up and all of a sudden you're hanging out at the gentleman's club, I'm probably going to have to leave you and take the kids. And here's the condition today. I still think the Titans are going to win the division. I still think the Titans are going to make the playoffs. I still think the Titans are going to get better. I still think the Titans are going to have a chance to improve their football team and to maybe make some noise come January when it really counts. But if you lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars, that's all gone. There is no excuse for losing on Sunday. Now, as I said to everybody, let's be very clear here. Let me continue with clarity in what I'm saying. I am not telling you they can't lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm telling you they better not. I've joked all week about how if they lose this game on Sunday, then someone's getting fired, and it might be me. And that obviously is in reference to how I will react on Monday. I hammered the Titans on Monday when they lost to the Jets. But what I tell you in that opening segment, I said, look, I'm not saying they should fire the coach. I'm not saying the general manager's a bad general manager, or I don't believe in the quarterback, or I don't believe in the team, or the season is over. I wasn't saying any of that stuff on Monday. I will be saying it if it happens this Monday. You can't lose this game. I asked a buddy of mine at the gym today, I said, if the Titans lose on Sunday, should they fire a coordinator? And he said, no. But he looked at me and goes, we're not going to lose on Sunday. I'm like, I think you're right. I hope you're right. But when's the last time we saw the Titans play a good game? Like a good game start to finish. Like even the end of last year. When did they play a good game start to finish? In December, they got housed at home by the Cleveland Browns. They beat the Detroit Lions, who were god-awful, in a game where they were ahead by like 3 touchdowns in the first half. And Detroit kind of came back and made it a little interesting there at the end. They got embarrassed on Sunday Night Football at Green Bay, and by the skin of their teeth had to win a game against a crummy Houston Texan team. They needed a Sam Sloman field goal to clinch the AFC South and beat that horrific Texan team. They needed a great throw from Tannehill to A.J. Brown, and they needed Derrick Henry to run for 250 yards. And they barely beat that awful Texan team that ended up picking 3rd in the draft this past year. They played the Ravens in the playoffs. That was ugly. Played awful week 1 against Arizona. Played a terrible first half, really first 3 quarters against the Seahawks. And we saw the Seahawks last night. How do we feel about that win right now? Played a good first quarter against the Colts and a sloppy rest of the game, and they were embarrassing last week. When is the last time they played a good game that you walked out of it and you said, those are the Titans? Was it Baltimore last year on the road at Baltimore? And do you know how crazy it is to bring that up? That it would be Baltimore on the road last year at Baltimore? That pregame show that we did was the last show Floyd did. And think about how long ago that was. So, I'm not threatening anybody right now. I'm not saying to Mike Vrabel, hey, you better find a way to beat the Jags or else. I'm not saying to John Robinson, I'll let the fans do all of that on Monday if they lose. I'm just saying, as far as having any faith in this team that told you when they traded a second-round pick and took on $15 million in salary for Julio Jones this summer, told you the fans, we think we're a Super Bowl contender, because you don't make that trade if you don't think you're a Super Bowl contender. If they lose to Jacksonville this week, any shot of that is down the drain. You become one of these Dallas Cowboy teams that we laugh at every year, that in June and July they talk about, are the Cowboys Super Bowl contenders? Well, they signed this guy. Jerry's got them going. And then they go 5-11 with Dave Campo as their head coach, and we laugh at the Cowboys when this happens. That's you if you lose on Sunday to the Jets. Jacksonville. I hope the Titans realize what's at stake here. I hope they realize that season, and they thought they had high expectations for themselves. I hope they understand this. I hope that they show us on Sunday against Jacksonville that they realize, hey, we haven't played good football yet. We think we're better than that. We need to go put our best effort forward. Because if not, then they're all just a bunch of talkers. And that starts from the head coach on down. And I think at that point, every decision becomes questionable. Your general manager has not gotten players right now in the draft that can help your football team on a consistent basis. He signed injured guys, traded for injured guys, drafted injured guys that right now aren't helping you. That becomes a much bigger issue on Monday if you lose to the Jags. Your head coach has hired a defensive coordinator that every week just happens to give up a busted coverage touchdown. That becomes a bigger issue if they lose to Jacksonville. He promoted an offensive coordinator that everybody except for me doesn't like. And that becomes a bigger issue if you lose to Jacksonville on Sunday. It all is on the table then. Everybody making playoff plans, contracts, guys that Taylor Lewan's mad at the fans. It all's on the table. You lose Sunday to Jacksonville. I can say that if you lose this Sunday to Jacksonville, it would be the most humiliating Titans loss since they lost to an 0-10 Indianapolis team in 2011. And by the way, that loss to the Colts kept you out of the playoffs and was probably the signal to all of us that Mike Munchak wasn't the right guy for the job. And I do think that we'll start to have discussions about whether or not Vrabel is the right guy for the job if they lose on Sunday to Jacksonville. So a win on Sunday, a dominating win, which I am expecting. Are you expecting a dominating win?
It should be.
Ian?
I'm expecting that, yes.
Ian, are you expecting a dominating win?
I'd like to think so, yeah.
Okay. A dominating win, which is what's expected. That doesn't really, you win big against Jacksonville. All right, we're on to Buffalo. You lose, and it is the panic button. The panic button doesn't just get hit on Monday if you lose on Sunday. It gets smashed in so hard that you may not be able to get it to pop out. That's how hard you're hitting the panic button. At least that's how hard I'm hitting the panic button. So I'd like to think that this Titans team has more heart. This core, and I think it's the core, this core, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, Kevin Byard, A.J. Brown, Taylor Lewan, Ben Jones, Rashaan Evans, Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry, this core got you to an AFC Championship game 2 years ago. They weren't the most talented guys out there. They weren't the smartest football team. They weren't the best coach team. But they found a way. And if this team can't do that, then the idea of them getting back to what they once were, to me, goes out the window. You know what they remind me of right now? And a win over Jacksonville doesn't totally clear them from this. Ian, you remember the 2019 Predators team?
I think so, yeah.
2017, they went to the Cup final. They were the toast of the town. 2018, best team in the league. Goal here or there in the Winnipeg series. Maybe they win the Cup. 2019, they weren't really all that good. Power play was a mess. People wanted assistant coaches fired. They still won the division, but they weren't very good. And they kept telling us, oh, no, we'll flip a switch. We'll find it. First round against Dallas, punched in the mouth, see ya. I feel like if you lose this week to Jacksonville, that's what you are. And everything that we were excited about, everything that we spent all this time getting all worked up, it's gone. I'm out on the Titans if they lose on Sunday. Win on Sunday, now you get ready for the gauntlet. How many can you steal? Buffalo, Kansas City, the Rams, and the Colts. You lose on Sunday, who cares? 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Let's get your reaction. And I'm just throwing it out there today. I am out on this team if they lose Sunday. I don't care that Julio Jones is out. I don't care that Brett Kern's out. I don't care that Bud Dupree's been hurt. I don't care that the offensive line is a mess. I don't care that they didn't bother to get a starting tight end in the offseason. I don't care. You lose on Sunday, out. Done for the 2021 season. What do you think? 615-737-1025. We'll get your calls. We'll get your texts. We'll get going as we are rocking and rolling on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Can you tell I had a little Diet Mountain Dew today?
I could tell. Was it just a drop?
I had just a little bit of
That's
Diet
all it
Mountain Dew.
takes.
Just a little. I don't ever drink caffeine, so you get a little Diet Mountain Dew in there, and bam, we are rocking and rolling. Coming up next, how much of the way the Titans play Sunday will be a reflection of Mike Vrabel? We will discuss that next. 615-737-1025 on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. I love Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. It goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. There's no better way to ignite the night. And as you can tell, I am already Fireball Hot Taking today, ready to roll. And that's how you get when you enjoy ice-cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Got a big wedding tomorrow to go to, and I'm sure I'll be toasting with Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Ignite the night. Please do it responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey.
Guys kind of in and out, limited, full, but still along with
Just tried to do what was best for the football team. We got a lot of reps in, and I would say a very relaxed setting on Wednesday, and continue to add to that tempo on Thursday and then today. So, just appreciated their approach, their professionalism to get a lot of reps done on Wednesday, a lot of plays, to see a lot of plays on both sides of the ball, and then continue to build as the week went on.
There you go. What's in the best interest of the football team, Mike, as the Titans get set for Jacksonville on Sunday. So I started the show off on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. I said, look, I am done. Done with the 2021 Titans if they lose on Sunday. And I got to say this. That sounds like such a harsh thing to say. It's freaking Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they're playing the Dallas Cowboys or the Chargers or like a good NFL
Because
team.
I don't think that would be our narrative if they were playing the Chargers or the Cowboys or the Chiefs or
Buffalo
the Bills.
Bills.
No, that would absolutely not be our conversation. It's the
would-
fact that it's the winless Jags.
It wouldn't even be our discussion if it was the Bears or the Vikings or the 49ers or
like
an
a
average
middle
team.
tier
Yeah.
team.
No, wouldn't be our show. You lose this one after you lost the last one, I'm done. And then it's just all talk. Then it's all just
Fodder.
your reaction to that idea. That it's over, that they have told us that they are not competitors this year if they lose Sunday.
I agree with it because I said yesterday, if you lose to the Jags, your win to the Seahawks, I don't care anymore. I don't care. And especially after the Seahawks lost to the Rams, especially since the Seahawks haven't really had a season like we expected them to have, your win against the Seahawks, that doesn't mean anything to me anymore. I mean, and I said, the Titans lose to the Jags, they still technically could win out and still go 13-4 and still have a really great shot at the playoffs. But your road gets so much more difficult because you have to beat the Rams, you have to beat the Bills, you have to beat the Chiefs, and you have the 49ers, the Steelers, the Saints, teams that we're not incredibly high on, but teams that could absolutely cause a hiccup in the Titans' schedule. So if you're going to lose to the Jets and the Jags, then my thoughts about you beating the Chiefs and the Bills and the Rams, I think that goes significantly downhill if you can't even beat the bad teams.
And you still may win the division even if you lose on Sunday.
Yeah.
Because the division's terrible. So you may lose on Sunday and still win the division, but I mean the idea that you're going to go that you're going to go, that you're going to be the Chargers at home in the playoffs, or you're going to go on the road to Baltimore, or you're going to do anything like that.
It could happen, but it doesn't make me feel good about it.
How much of this is on Vrabel? How much of, regardless of the injuries, the players got to play, players got to block, Downing's got to call a better game, Bowen's got to get, them to Jackrabbit Jenkins to stop falling down. But how much of this is on Vrabel to have these boys ready to play? Because this has been something over the last, we've talked about it a lot. Titans are backed into a corner. No one expects them to win. And they go out there and they find a way. And everybody kisses Vrabel's butt the second that happens. They keep losing games like the Jets. And I know it's the NFL. And I know as far as losing to Jacksonville, this is the NFL. They got a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence who might be the next great quarterback. He's not that right now, but he may be. And so it's not, Jacksonville's awful, but they may not, they're not a college team. They are a legitimate team. Well, they are a team. And yet I look at this one, I'm like, you know what, Mike? And I'm not saying they should fire him if they lose on Sunday, but I think to me, I'll kind of have my mind made up when it comes to, can Vrabel get them out there?
Well, it hasn't happened yet, so we
Has
can't
not
come
happened
for anything yet.
Not yet.
But what's Mike Vrabel's job?
Get the boys ready to play.
Get them ready to play. And if there's a Downing issue, if there's a Shane Bowen issue,
They're all Vrabel
those
issues.
are Vrabel's guys.
Yep.
It all starts with Vrabel. Vrabel is the root of this team. He is the support system of this team. So if you can't get your guys ready to go into Jacksonville after losing to the Jets, if they are not so fired up and so pissed off after last week and wanting to make a point and wanting to prove to people that, look, hey, that's not what this team is. This team is not losing to the Jets. If they're not that level of ready for this game, then that comes from Vrabel. That's the root. The root of the problem is Vrabel.
Let's kick it around the room. Do you think Vrabel have him ready to play on Sunday?
Yeah, I do.
Ian?
I think so, yeah.
I do too. I'm sitting here saying, if you don't, I think he is going to on Sunday. Like, I think Vrabel realizes how big of a deal this is.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm telling you, this is serious stuff now. This is, you lose to Jacksonville. I told you all Friday last week, I'm scared of the Jets. I'm scared of the Titans. I didn't say if they lose to the Jets that we're out on Vrabel, we're out on Tannehill, we're out. This is different. This is different. Let's go to your phones. 615-737-1025, Fireball Hot Take Friday. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Caroline has informed me that the text line has absolutely blown up, but we'll get the calls first. Gruff is going to kick us off today on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, Gruff.
Yeah, so what does you being out on the Titans entail?
Me being out on them?
Yeah.
It means that anytime that somebody like you calls in and says, no, Jared, we can make it all the way this year. We can. Nope. Anytime they get up there and tell us, hey, we just got to play better and cup. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. That any hope for this season, thank you for the call, Gruff, any hope for this season should be lost. And I know where he's going with that, which is like, what's the currency of you being out on the Titans? Well, the currency is that this is an incredibly popular show that is popular because we tell it like it is. And so here's the thing. People listen, and they know. Titan fans know. Like, sometimes I think that certain takes or certain beliefs, mainly on Twitter, but in general, sometimes get blown out of proportion like it's some cartoon character thing with just redonkulous, what did you just say? You know, some of that stuff. I think Titan fans are smart enough to know. You lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars after you lose to the Jets. It's over, baby. Like, I think they know.
I mean, I think they have to know. Like, I mean, that's 2 back-to-back losses against winless teams. Like, after a while, if you can't beat the bad teams, what does that make you?
Let's go to the phones. Rick is up next here on Strength and Conditioning. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, Rick.
Hey, thanks for taking the call. I would blame Vrabel, but I go back a ways. I think one of his biggest mistakes was getting rid of Watterson. And now these soft tissue injuries are, to me, getting ridiculous, particularly with those people that he held out of preseason so they wouldn't get injured. Soft tissue injuries like a hamstring happen to old men in a bowling league. They happen to old men trying to play softball.
So I'm going to say this, and I appreciate your call, Rick. I love Steve Watterson. Like, I do. And I think, look, Floyd was the best man in Steve Watterson's wedding. Like, and so, I mean, I don't have a great relationship with Watterson, but I really like the guy. And I think he likes me. And I think he was a good strength coach for a long time. I do think that the lack of practicing during the preseason has been an issue with the Titans. But we had Fitz on the other day, and he said this is going across the league. And think about this. In week 3, when you played the Colts and your guys started to get hurt, their guys were already hurt. And then last week, Marcus May, the best safety on the Jets, out on IR. And now this week against Jacksonville, I mean, their coach is sticking his fingers in girls' jeans right in their butts. So the injury stuff, like, I'm not smart enough, and neither are you. None of us are, to know why the Titans are having such injury problems. Do I think the lack of practicing during camp was an issue? Yes, I do. But I don't think, other than Derrick Henry, that Vrabel went out of his way to keep any of these guys from practicing. I think they got hurt or they got COVID or whatever. And so that's unfortunate. I think it's on Vrabel because this is a team that does not belong in the game with the Titans. And if they are in the game with the Titans, I'm going to be upset about it. But I'm not on Vrabel for the way that training camp went down. Because I do think Vrabel wanted those guys out there.
And I do think in the preseason games that the COVID outbreak kind of threw a wrench in whatever Vrabel's plan may have been. I don't know that for certain, but I can only assume.
And we're all about being fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's credit where credit is due, blame where it should go. And so I'm not going to throw Vrabel under the bus for that one. We're right back to your phones next. It's Fireball Hot Take Friday, so it's you and us. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. FanDuel Sportsbook, my official sportsbook app. NFL Week 5 is here. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app wants you to get the most out of every play. That's why they're giving everybody a $10 risk-free bet every week. All you have to do is bet a same-game parlay with 3 legs or more, and if your bet doesn't win, FanDuel will pay you back up to $10. So you got a big game, Titans and Jags this weekend. I'm going to say Derrick Henry probably hits the over on the rushing total. I'm going to say A.J. Brown anytime touchdown scorer because somebody has to be the guy in the red zone. And I'll take Titans. Do we know what the spread is? I think it's like 4.5 or something like that. Well, I'll take the
Approximately,
Titans.
yes.
I'll take the Titans. There you go. I love FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's easy to use, it's safe and secure, and it's America's #1 sportsbook, and it's my official sportsbook app. There is no feeling like nailing a same-game parlay. If you're new to FanDuel, you can claim your 30-1 odds on either team to win Monday night's Indy and Baltimore game. Just sign up with the promo code JGM, and if your first bet loses, you'll get up to $1,000 back in site credit. That's promo code JGM. 21 and older and present Tennessee. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $10. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Same-game parlay available for multiple sports in all states on mobile/web. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789.
How much you have to be concerned with Trevor's legs and how good is he maybe when he does run it?
Well, he has run, but again, I think he's made a lot of plays and a lot of yards, outside the pocket, even on plays that aren't designed to go out of the pocket. His ability to keep his eyes down the field, to numerous instances where he's kind of finding the line of scrimmage and almost going lateral to it, where he probably could enter into the defense. He stays down the line of scrimmage and keeps his eyes down the field. So that was, I guess, something unique, I think, to see from him as we were watching tape. But he's athletic, he's tall, and you saw what he did on Thursday night and his ability to run the football.
There you go. That was Mike Vrabel. Look, I thought Trevor Lawrence was fine the Thursday night game against the Bengals. I mean, I was listening to a national radio station, and they were like, and you could tell that the NFL is in good hands with Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow. I was like, easy. Like, it's hard to make it as a young quarterback. A lot of these guys have failed. Like, let's just think about it. 2015, Jameis Winston, not with his team. Marcus Mariota, not with his team. 2016, Jared Goff, not with his team. Carson Wentz, not with his team. 2017, who was 2017? Mitchell Trubisky. I mean.
Was 17 Baker?
No, Baker was 18.
Okay.
18 was Baker, Sam Darnold, not with his team. Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, not with any, has been on 50 teams. And then Lamar at the end of the first. You never know with these guys. You never know. Join us. It'd be a good time to tell people. Join us in partnering with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's Light the Night. Light the Night brings light to the darkness of cancer through hope, research, and support for patients and families. Through this inspirational nationwide movement, we raise awareness for funding for groundbreaking research and treatment options to eliminate cancer. Nashville's Light the Night will be virtual and take place on November 4th. Learn more at lightthenight.org/TN. Let's go to your text, 615-737-1025 on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. What we got?
Andrew texts in and says, if the Titans lose on Sunday, who cares? After losing to the Jets and not going into Monday Night Football 4-1, the Titans are a joke. First game in 5 years, I'm not bothering to watch. If they beat the Jags 40-0, it doesn't make up for losing to the Jets.
See, I disagree. I think it makes up to the Jets if you go out there and you hammer Jacksonville.
Because I think weird things happen.
Well, it'll show me that you have a spine.
And if you lose to the Jags, that shows me what you are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, it'll show me that you have a spine. Mm-hmm. Because I think when it comes to beating Jacksonville, and look, I know, this is the NFL. Everybody's got players. The Jags have Trevor Lawrence and Laviska Shenault, and James Robertson ran for 1,000 yards last year. But they're a team that has been completely torn down. Like, they have totally torn down their roster and are rebuilding it. The winning this game is all about whether or not you're mentally there. And I think the same could be said for last Sunday's game, too. But we knew that they weren't going to be mentally there. That's why we were so worried about them being mentally there before they went into the Jets game. This is about whether or not you've got a spine, whether or not you're a real tough team out there. The one thing about Vrabel is everybody says, hey, when he was a player, that was the way he played, was he was tough, and he would give you his best effort, and he always showed up, and he was always in shape, and he always brought his effort, and he was always – and that's what he's supposed to get his team to do. And I know they let us down last week against the Jets. This is different. You win this game, you're 3-2. You need to take one or two of the gauntlet games, and I'm not counting Indy in the gauntlet game. You have to win the game at Indy. But if you win one of those three, and then you beat Indianapolis, you're fine. You're fine for this year. But you lose this, and the idea of you having a turnaround like the 1-4 Titans did in 2002 and reaching the AFC Championship game at 11-5 doesn't really make a lot of sense for me. At that point, I think it's kind of out the window. And at that point, I do wonder if, like Vrabel did in 2019 when he made the quarterback switch because he needed a spark, I wonder if Vrabel has to look at his roster and his coaching roster and think about making a spark.
Ben texts in the text line and says, again, this team is not capable of a dominating win, even against bad teams. The Titans are already a team that doesn't get taken seriously, mostly due to many outside of Nashville who look at Tannehill and view him as an average quarterback. So, I mean, I'm fine with it. We want to talk about Tannehill being an average quarterback. That is what's bothering me right now about Tannehill, is that he may not be good enough to play with the big boys, even though I've thought for two years that, hey, Tannehill's good enough to win with, and you can go, and now I'm starting to see some of the things Tannehill's doing, especially without Arthur. Starting to see some of the things Tannehill's doing, and I get a little bit worried. The idea that the Titans aren't capable of blowing anybody out, I think, is kind of ridiculous. I mean, this is a team that has been to the playoffs the last 2 years, 3 of the last 4. They have Pro Bowlers all over the roster. Whether or not you like it, Derrick Henry's the best running back in the league. Taylor Lewan has been to the Pro Bowl. A.J. Brown has been to the Pro Bowl. Julio Jones has been to the Pro Bowl. Last year, people were arguing that Nate Davis should have gone to the Pro Bowl. Ryan Tannehill has been to the Pro Bowl. On defense, you've got Jack Rabbit Jenkins, who I think has been to the Pro Bowl. Kevin Byard has been an All-Pro. Like, you've got enough players on your team to where you can blow somebody out in the NFL. Doesn't mean you will. Look, Baltimore needed a miracle from the refs and the longest kick in the history of the NFL to beat the Detroit Lions.
but you should be better than bad teams. And you should be capable of blowing out the Jacksonville Jaguars, regardless of what the rest of the country thinks of Ryan Tannehill.
But also, to the texter's point, you said when was the last time the Titans played a complete game?
Last time they played a complete game. When was the last time? Maybe, and I have to look at it, maybe when they played Jacksonville last year.
That was 31-10. That would have been right after the Browns lost before the Detroit win. I mean, they beat Detroit 46-25.
I know, but didn't Detroit sneak back into that game?
I mean, maybe, but 21 points is a pretty good butt whooping.
I want to say that game was like a complete blowout, and then Detroit made it close, and everyone was like, "Oh dear God, don't blow this."
And then the Colts game was 45-26 after the Ravens overtime win before the Browns loss.
Yeah, that Colts game though didn't really. I don't want to say it didn't count, but that was Autry and Buckner and Jonathan Taylor all had COVID.
So there's maybe one or two choices in there.
Do you think that you can blow a team out without playing a complete game?
It's the Jacksonville Jags.
Okay, but it was also the New York Jets.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the double whammy here. I don't think the Titans didn't blow out the Jets because the Titans can't blow out the Jets. I don't think the Titans blew out the Jets because the Titans just aren't good enough.
No, I think they fully are capable of doing it.
Right.
We just haven't seen it this season.
But that's my point, is we need to see it. We want you to see it. So you've got to show us.
Right.
What else we got?
Matt texts into the text line and says, I think the Titans will lose, and the two bad performances will wake them up to finish the season with a big win to make the playoffs.
What do you think the show's like on Monday? And not just me, but I'm talking about the overall feeling if they lose this game, coupled with their loss to the Jets.
I mean,
I have a hard time fathoming all of this because I expect the Titans to win on Sunday.
I think it's going to be a serious reality/wake-up call. A serious look in the mirror moment of, do you think you're even going to be mad? I feel like we'd even be past mad at that point. I think at that point, you just really have to kind of look at yourself and say, okay, what is this team?
Oh, I think I'll be mad.
I think you probably will too. That's probably fair.
I think I'll be
That's
mad.
probably fair.
I mean, I think that I think if they lose, and I think I said this either last segment or at the beginning of this segment, I think if they lose, then we really do have to start questioning whether or not Vrabel's the right guy for this job.
And that's what I mean by take a serious look in the mirror. Because you can get mad at a team if they lose a game that they should have won or if they made sloppy mistakes. That loss to Arizona, we had every right to be mad about that game because the Titans did not play well. But I think it gets to a certain point where anger is just kind of out the door.
And I again feel the need that I have to clarify this. When I say that we need to start deciding whether or not Vrabel's the right guy for the job, that does not mean fire him if they lose on Sunday. Mm-hmm. That means, though, openly saying, look, can Mike Vrabel run the coaching staff the way that they need to run a coaching staff? I have a lot of reservations about Vrabel right now, and I think a lot of people do. I don't think I'm the only person who sits there looking at what Vrabel's accomplished so far and said, well, we see this over here that's pretty good, but then we see a lot of things over here that aren't. And I'll use, the first-round draft picks as an example, or all the draft picks. Can these guys just simply not play, every single one of them? Because, Robinson has been a pretty good drafter. Now, he's missed. Every GM misses. But John Robinson's the same guy that found Jayon Brown in the 5th round, same guy that found, Amani Hooker. And so is it the last two draft classes have just been that bad? Robinson's terrible? Or can Vrabel and his coaching staff not get these guys on the field? And I think that's at least worth discussing.
Well, how can you get guys out in the field if they're injured?
Well, but I'm talking about Radens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Radens and Molden and Monty Rice and all these other guys. Are they any good? And they're not helping you right now. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We will get back to your phones. 615-737-1025. Robbie Stanley just texted me and said, can you imagine the urban memes out there if the Titans lose this game? I don't want to. I don't want to.
Twitter will be a very scary place if you're a Titans fan.
Oh, I do not. Oh, goodness gracious. I do not want that. Oh, I do not want that. 615-737-1025. We'll get back to your phones. Plus, why one rookie might actually be on the field. I think everybody knows who I'm talking about. What do we expect? We'll discuss that coming up next. Stillman and Company right here, ESPN 102.5 The Game. 102.5 The Game has your chance to win Preds tickets during the month of October. Just post a picture of your radio dial set to 102.5 The Game on social media via Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Tag the game and use the hashtag TicketDash to be qualified to win instantly. Show us your dash, brought to you by Social Furniture. Support local, support social. Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Farley got in a full week of work this week after missing a couple of weeks. Does the couple of weeks he missed stunt his progress at all, and how is he?
He did stay on top of it. I felt like, giving him things to do, while he was out, as far as reports on players or just studying and continue to not just waste the time focusing on his body, but also focusing on, the mental. Sometimes gymnastics of a call-to-call checks that we make. So I think he, has done that and tried to improve. And I think that would probably be one of the most difficult things, especially for young players, is to stay engaged when physically they're not able to be out there. Is how do you stay engaged in a meeting, stay engaged when you're not, watching film and you're not even out there. You're not going to show up on the tape. How do you stay engaged to learn and improve? And I think, he tried to do that.
That was Mike Vrabel on Caleb Farley. Caleb Farley in his NFL career, after being taken in the first round and being hyped up as the best corner in this draft if he's healthy, has not been healthy, but he will play. Shane Bowen said if he's ready, he'll play. And I think we learned last week after they kicked Christian Fulton inside as opposed to putting Elijah Molden in the game that they're not interested in playing Molden, which is a reflection of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know this is going to sound crazy. I expect Caleb Farley to play well if he plays. Because if he's not ready to play, then don't put him out there.
I don't think that sounds crazy.
But it's going to, if Farley gets burned a couple of times this week, the excuses are going to start flying into that text line that you're in charge of. And it's going to be like, he was hurt, Jared. He hasn't played football in 2 years. And it's like, this is the NFL. Jeffrey Simmons tore his ACL. You all loved using the Jeffrey Simmons comparison when you drafted Caleb Farley, even though the injuries were very different. And you all kept saying, hey, it worked with Simmons. And I'm still not convinced that Simmons is the kind of player that he's supposed to be. TD was on the show yesterday talking about it. He was on the morning show talking about it. And I just remember listening to a Jared and the GM podcast from 2 years ago where Floyd was like, now what we're expecting out of him is not to be a guy that does a lot of good things but doesn't show up in the box score. We're looking for things that show up in the box score. And we're not seeing that from Jeffrey Simmons. But, I just know that, Simmons in his first game got 2 sacks. So the idea of, well, Farley's hurt, it's going to take time. Well, it might, but don't put him out there if he's not ready. And I think the Titans have done a disservice by not being honest with people about some of these injuries that they've had because it leads you to speculate and it leads you to get angry and frustrated. And I'm angry and frustrated right now with the way that the Caleb Farley thing has gone down. And it's not just Farley's fault, but he kind of represents this entire rookie class as the number one guy. And if he gets out there against Jacksonville and isn't ready to play, now I got some issues here. So I think that's something worth monitoring. Also on the injury front, the Titans have placed 4 players on IR, and they have signed 4 players to the active roster. Amani Bledsoe, linebacker Joe Jones. I have no idea who that is.
Fun name.
Joe Jones. Probably the first Joe Jones there ever was. Promoted to the active roster. Corey Levin, offensive lineman. He's been a backup guard, backup center for forever. He's been added to the active roster. Racy McMath, Tommy Hudson. Now, it looked like Tommy Hudson broke his ankle.
I'm ready for Racy McMath o'clock.
What does that mean?
I'm ready for him to be in there.
Oh, I'm ready for him to go.
McMath.
I'm ready for him to go.
I'm ready for it.
I could not give 2 poops about Racy McMath.
All right.
He sucks. Racy McMath, Tommy Hudson, Aaron Brewer, Snapaholics Anonymous. Aaron Brewer out on IR with his beautiful snap over the head of Ryan Tannehill.
His snap that could have been mistaken for a field goal.
Ian, I think I'm ready to put Brewer on the Pam Phil list.
Wow. That seems a bit extreme.
Dude, hey, don't you think Floyd would hate a guy who misses all the practice because he gets hurt, outside of the facility, gets hurt, comes back, shows up, costs you the game, goes on IR?
I mean, maybe, but I don't think he's been as a disappearing act as Panfield quite was yet.
I mean, Pamfield was a totally. Jayon Brown placed on IR. Guys.
Did you not say you were one Jayon Brown IR away from being out on Jayon Brown?
I'm done with Jayon Brown. This was why nobody wanted to go get Jayon Brown. In the offseason, I think TD put together some comp that was like, 30-something million for Jayon Brown was what he expected him to get on the open market. He got 1 year at 5.5. I think it's time for us to realize that Jayon Brown is a reserve linebacker. He's got ball skills like a starting linebacker, but you can't ever invest or count on Jayon Brown.
Your best ability?
Availability. He got hurt in 2019 in the playoff run. Didn't play. Did not play. He got hurt early in that Patriot game. Did not play the next week against the Ravens. David Long Jr. did. Last year, down the stretch, broke the elbow. Did not play. David Long Jr. did. And so far this year, Jayon Brown has not played. David Long Jr. has. And so I think it's time for us. Now, look, Jayon may come back at some point this season, and if he does, I'd stick him in there. But, I mean, as far as relying on Jayon Brown, I'm done with that. You can't count on him. So you're right. Was I an IR away from being done with Jayon Brown? I'm done with Jayon Brown. Just move it along. See you next year. Go to another team. Play some special teams. Call it a career. Go watch some soccer. Whatever.
Is he a soccer fan?
I think so. I think he's always doing the Nashville SC stuff.
Oh, nice.
So go do that. because clearly staying healthy and playing in the NFL is not your forte. And I understand guys don't choose to be injured, but these are their careers. So it's not my career. It's not your career. It's their career. Let's go back to your phone. 615-737-1025.
Tyler texts in and says, how much of it falls on Vrabel? All of it. He always insists that we give him the blame so he doesn't have to explain things. So let's just do that.
I keep wondering, Bud Dupree, and I do want to get into this at some point today. Bud Dupree came out yesterday, and, goodness gracious, the local media just, bowed to their knees on Bud Dupree. Bud Dupree was so honest about pushing himself, and what a just class act for Bud Dupree to tell us that he was hurt the whole time. Are you surprised by that?
No.
And I was sitting there today listening to TD talk on Robbie and Rex Road about, how Bud Dupree admitted that, look, he pushed himself too hard. He wanted to be out there, and the knee wasn't cooperating, and that he pushed himself to be out there before he was ready and needed to kind of bring it back a notch, which I totally understand. And I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking to myself, if Mike Vrabel could just be honest with us about some of these injuries, then I think people wouldn't be so floored when a guy comes out and says, yeah, I tore my ACL in December of last year. I tried to rush back from it in September, and I'm just not ready. And it's wow, that all adds up. But if the head coach would just say that, then maybe it would make people feel better about the player, and then the player wouldn't have to create headlines by talking about it himself, since nobody else in the organization will do it for him. And this goes back to it all on Vrabel. If Vrabel wants to say, put it all on me, I have no problem on Sunday if they lose to Jacksonville, putting it all on Vrabel and saying, all right, this is you. You wear this one. The Jets game, we were mad at you for the Jets game, but we weren't as mad at you as we were mad at everybody else. We're mad at you for this one.
Another texter texts in and says, if you fire Malarkey for not getting rid of the offensive coordinator, then what is J-Rob's excuse for Vrabel keeping Bowen? It is obvious he cannot coach the defense.
I think that is a question John Robinson has to answer if things don't improve. Last year, after the season was over, they promoted Bowen. We did ask the questions. TD asked, I asked, we asked, what the hell? Mm-hmm. And John didn't really have much of an answer. When you go back and listen to it, John's like, oh, well, continuity. And John very much, in my heart, made it feel like, look, man, that's Mike's guy. You go talk to Mike about that. But considering that we've already had the precedent being set that John Robinson will fire the coach if he won't switch the coordinator, I do think that that's worth discussing. It's a lot like Peter Laviolette. Laviolette said after the 19th season, the power play was an unmitigated disaster. They went 0 of 15 against the Dallas Stars. And Laviolette said, hey, it all is with me. It's not about Dan Muse. It's not about Kevin McCarthy. It's all on me. And he went out, to his credit, and hired a power play coach in Dan Lambert. And that obviously didn't work out. But he did hire Dan Lambert. But Laviolette said, put it on me. And guess who got the axe about 6 months later? He did. And so that is, I think, at least worth discussing. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Speaking of coaches getting fired, could a coach get fired after this game on Sunday? After the Titans play Sunday against Jacksonville? Could a coach get fired? But it's not the coaches you think I'm talking about. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company right here. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025 The Game, Fireball Hot Take Friday, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. So, I am never going to be the guy who tells you this, which is most people will say, I never root for somebody to lose their job, right? Like, that's what some people say. Mm-hmm. I will never root for a man to lose his job, is what a lot of people say.
Yeah.
Now, I've had people tell me one time I was happy that somebody got fired, a coach got fired, and Darren McFarland told me in like no uncertain terms, he said, you've never been fired before, so you don't know what that's like. And it did kind of hit home with me about the fact that I have been lucky enough, knock on wood, to have not been fired and to have not had mortgages and kids and things like that to have to worry about when somebody lets you go. Thank goodness. So I think there is something to that. But at the same time, Urban Meyer does not get my sympathy. So here are the Titans. And I was reading Albert Breer, who asked a question about what you would do if you were Shad Khan in regards to Urban Meyer. And a lot of people, including me, have said that I would fire Urban Meyer. And I would not fire Urban Meyer for dancing at a bar with a girl. I would not fire Urban, as awkward and as weird as it was to see him putting his fingers in the butt area of the woman. I would not fire him for that. And Albert Breer wrote that he doesn't think it would set a good precedent to fire an NFL coach for running around on their wife, because be surprised to know that over the next 100 years of the NFL, that's probably going to happen again. But I want Urban Meyer fired, because Urban Meyer is just the slimiest, just most condescending, just worst of the worst. Everything that's bad about success in college football, Urban represents. Mm-hmm. Urban lied to all of us, and we all know he did, when it came to a domestic assault at Ohio State of his own coach with that coach's wife. And that coach's wife told his wife, and Urban told all of us that his wife didn't tell him. Okay. So I've always harbored that against Urban. Now, that's also part of the reason why I would have never hired Urban, which Shad Khan did. So he was obviously overlooking it. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing it's not that big of a deal to him. But one of the questions that Albert Breer brought up was if the Jacksonville Jag players totally quit on Urban. And we've heard, look, he didn't really have our respect to begin with, but now he really doesn't have our respect. And I don't know if I didn't read into this like everybody else did. Trevor Lawrence broke down the huddle at practice. Did you see what he said?
No.
He brought everybody together, hands up, like, all right, grind on 3. 1, 2, 3, grind. And, like, some of the players laughed and giggled.
I think that's just an unfortunate coincidence.
I didn't, like, when I saw it, I thought grind. Like, what does grind
like,
mean?
go out there, work hard.
Right. Like, I
grind.
didn't. And then I was like,
but also, like,
grinding.
Grind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you think the Titans, if they blow out the Jacksonville Jags on Sunday, can get Urban fired? And as I said, normally, 99% of the time, I'm not going to root for a man to lose his job. Mm-hmm. I am actively rooting for Urban to lose his job, even if it's in the worst interest of the Titans. Because if they fire Urban, they will, at the end of the year, maybe go out and hire a good coach. I'm not saying they will. Shad Khan has never shown the ability to hire a good coach, but it does give them the possibility of hiring a good coach, which we know Urban is not in the NFL. But I just can't stand Urban Meyer. I hope the Titans go out there and win by 50 on Sunday, which they should. Go out there and annihilate Jacksonville. And you've seen games where you look at a team that's quit on their coach, and you're like, okay, it's time to
When you lose the locker room, you're done.
And you can tell.
Yeah.
You can tell. When the coaches lost the locker room, like, you can tell. You can say, okay, like, these guys.
They're playing for nothing out there.
They cannot. I am hopeful that the Titans take care of business and Urban gets fired. And I don't know, would you fire Urban after you said, hey, clearly the statement that he put out on Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever it was essentially Urban's our coach for right now. And Urban's got some work to do to prove to us that he should be our coach.
And we fully expect him to, regain our good graces.
Which was the way of saying he's got some work to do to prove he's our coach.
Your leash is short.
And if you're the owner and you go to the game Sunday and you see your team get embarrassed, the way that I think the Titans could embarrass Jacksonville on Sunday, does Urban get the boot?
See, it's hard for me to say because if I was Shad Khan, I never would have even hired Urban Meyer in the first place. That wouldn't have even been a thought in my mind to hire Urban Meyer. So you say you wouldn't fire him for, going out and acting like a fool at a bar.
Right. I would fire him for all the reasons I would have never hired him.
Exactly.
Which is hard to put me in Shad's shoes.
Right. So obviously those things didn't bother Shad Khan and the Jacksonville Jaguars organization enough. So I don't think that this is like a last straw situation. You wouldn't fire him just for those actions. They're going to be 0-5. Hopefully, if the Titans can get the job done on Sunday, they will be 0-5. So if I was the owner, would I fire him? I don't know. I wouldn't even hire him in the first place. Do I think that he will get fired if the Jacks get embarrassed on Sunday? No. I think they give it a season.
Even if they just totally quit on him?
I mean, but if the Jags losing on Sunday, is that an indication that they've totally quit on him?
No, but
because they haven't won a game yet.
I'm talking about when you look on the field and you're like, these guys have quit on this.
I think to your point that you made earlier in the week that if Trevor Lawrence goes into Shad Khan's office and says, I cannot play for this guy anymore, you have to fire him.
Well, I think that's a break the glass thing. I don't think Trevor wants to do that. Like, I think with the Titans, because when they fired Wisenhunt the second year into his tenure, which was incredibly surprising at the time, they won the first game. They crushed Tampa Bay. They lost the second game, lost the third game. It was frustrating. And they lost a game in maybe right around now, maybe the middle of October, where Miami had fired their coach. And Tannehill and the Dolphins came in here and just lit the Titans on fire. Mariota got hurt. And I was sitting in my seats at the game, and Mariota was rolling around on the ground. And at the time, Mariota was our franchise. Like, he was the Trevor Lawrence of the Titans at that point. And I'm like, you got to get him out. The line was so bad. The line was 100 times worse than the line is right now. And I was like, you've got to take him out of the game. Like, you cannot risk this kid. And Wisenhunt put him back in the game, and that was it for me. Mm-hmm. And I went on the air that Monday, and I was like, I got to fire this coach. Then they lost 2 more games. Got embarrassed at Houston. And when you get embarrassed at Houston around here, that's normally the way that you get yourself shown the door. It felt to me like they had quit on him. Like they had quit on Wisenhunt. And it was so toxic that the Titans had to pay him $5 million a year to not coach for 3.5 seasons. Like, that's insane. That's literally flushing $20 million down the toilet.
Yeah.
And they did it.
But it's also to save the integrity of your football team.
Yes.
And that's worth $20 million.
And I wonder if Shad Khan would do that. Like, I wonder if Shad Khan... I saw an interesting story on Pro Football Talk.
But I also go back to the fact that he even hired him in the first place.
Right. I wouldn't have done it. And so if you did, you have an infatuation with him, so it's going to be harder to get rid of him. Pro Football Talk had an interesting article that if they do change coaches in the middle of the year, like here are the assistant coaches that are of the possibility. Darrell Bevel, the offensive coordinator, would be a possibility. He's been a coordinator in the league for forever, but has bounced around everywhere. But I don't think he's ever been a head coach. He would be a possibility. Charlie Strong has been a head coach in college, but has 4 games of NFL experience in his career. So Charlie, I guess, could be a possibility. And then, like, their defensive coordinator, I guess, was, like, naked in 2005 and went to a Wendy's. And I don't know. Like, so you can't make that guy head coach.
If I had $1.
I mean, that guy is... And they brought up the possibility of bringing in Jeff Fisher to run the show for the rest of the year and then turning it over to another coach. And I think,
what a mess.
Like, Tony Dungy was one of the options. Tony Dungy's not leaving NBC
No.
to go run the Jags for a year. Absolutely not. They brought up Jeff Fisher. I could see Jeff Fisher doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, what else
is he doing?
Here's $3 million. Just
go run. Just
for the
try
rest
not
of the
to, add fuel to the fire.
I hope the Titans get Urban Meyer fired on Sunday. Openly rooting for Urban to get fired.
I just don't think it'll happen.
I don't either. Corey Curtis, News 2, will join us next. We'll get Corey's thoughts on the Titans as they get set to take on the Jacksonville Jags. And if the negativity that seems like I feel going into this game, win or else, if that is fair. Corey Curtis, News 2, will join us. Stillman and Company, we are delivered by TriStar Moving. I love TriStar Moving. I moved with them a year ago, and moving with TriStar was one of the smartest decisions I made because the moving process can be so stressful, but not when you have friends like I do at TriStar Moving. So if you're looking to move, give them a call today. That's 640-1219. Or visit their website at nashvillemoving.org/radio, where they'll give you 5% off your entire move. They offer home protection, so they'll cover your floors, banisters, railings, door jambs, and even the doors themselves. They are always upping the game when it comes to mover training because they hold such a high standard, and that's why their motto is TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Those are my friends at TriStar Moving. Again, give them a call, 615-640-1219. Tell them Jared Stillman sent you for TriStar Moving, my official movers. Stillman and Company. By the way, playoff baseball. The Braves are about to throw the first pitch. So if you hear any crazy words come out of my mouth, don't blame me. Just know that. Hey, support Stars on Saturday, October 16th by running, walking, or boogieing the Nashville Striders' 21st annual Shelby Bottoms Boogie 15K and 5K run/walk at Shelby Bottoms Park. This event is perfect for the avid runner as well as the casual jogger, or show your support and participate virtually. For more information, visit starsnashville.org. Speaking of running and boogieing and all the miles and kilometers and everything else, Corey Curtis completed another Ironman recently. Corey, first of all, congratulations on that before we get to the Titans-Jags game. Congratulations on another Ironman.
It was a half Ironman. I have too much respect for people who do the full to claim.
I take the congratulations back, Corey, because it was only a half and not a full. So
No, I appreciate the congratulations for the half, but like I said, it's the respect level for the people who have completed the full that I don't want there to be any cross homogenation there, thinking that I'm referencing them as the same thing, because they're not the same thing. It is still a very long day, though, and I do appreciate it.
Caroline documented that we are not congratulating him for the full Ironman, but only for the half Ironman because we don't want to offend the full Ironmanners.
Noted.
Okay, so I want to start with this Titans-Jags game, Corey. I started the show with this. I'm done with this team if they lose on Sunday. Like the idea, everything that we had going into the season, talking about, Super Bowl and Julio Jones and AFC and Buffalo, Kansas. Screw it. You lose to the Jets, that's one thing. I was scared to death of that. Everything I was scared to death of, they did. You lose to Jacksonville, I'm out for the season. I think you're phony. I think we got to start analyzing everything about this team if they lose on Sunday to Jacksonville. I'm not expecting them to, but I think those are the stakes. What do you make of it?
Well, I think that, that is a Stillman-like massive knee-jerk reaction, to which I'm, really proud of your consistency. So I appreciate that.
It is Fireball Hot Take Friday.
Yes. And then, look, if last week was disappointing, but almost predictable. I mean, we talked last week where we hemmed and hawed, saying we've been through this game before. And the moment they started kicking field goals, what were you saying? I'm sure it was the same thing I was saying. We've watched this game before, and you knew those field goals were going to come back to hurt them. And so, I said I would bet on Vrabel having them ready to go. I was wrong. And, this is a strictly between the ears game for both teams, all right? Whichever one shows up ready and ready to move forward from where they were a week ago, the one that's better than it was a week ago, able to move on from its problems of a week ago, is probably going to be the one that wins the games. Now, they have complete opposite, total different problems, which is really, really, really fascinating. So it's going to be really interesting to see. The other thing that we haven't, we didn't talk about this all week. The Jaguars lost 19 games in a row. 19. And as soon as I heard that, Jared, you know what my reaction was? Oh, man, now we're in trouble.
Corey Curtis, our guest, by the way, brought to you by Invigorate Health in Mount Juliet. Look and feel your best with IV therapy, medical weight loss, testosterone health, and wellness, and body shaping treatments. InvigorateHealthTN.com for more info. What do you make of the week the Jags have had with all the urban drama?
Wow, you know what? I frankly, I was surprised he made it through the week. I was, but I mean, he's making like $10 million a year, and so if he was making $3.5 million a year, he'd be done. He'd be gone. And so they're trying to get through this game is what I believe, is they're trying to get through this game. But if they get drilled this game, I think he's done. I mean, I think if they get beat 42-7, he does not make it to next week in my estimation. Look, he fell on the sword. He took all the questions, but the excuses were lame, and he didn't need to make them. He just needed to say, bad decision, really embarrassing, disappointing that I was this for my team and that for my team. But then when he started saying, it's on the leadership of this team to pull us through, he is basically acknowledging he is not the leader of the team, that he has no credibility. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how they react to this. I think Kayla at work was asking me, is there anything that compares to this? And I was really trying to come up with something that compared to this. And the NBA has weirdness with Kyrie and James Harden and Durant with his burner accounts. And the NBA has weirdness. But to have an NFL head coach do this is pretty weird. And you know what? What bothered me most, Jared, about it, from a football point of view, was not flying back with the team.
Dude, we talked about that. Every Twitter, football guy. I mean, and this is where I wonder about Floyd, because I was thinking about all week, how would we do topics with Floyd? Like, how would Floyd have addressed, Urban putting his finger on that girl's butt? Like, how would he have felt about that kind of thing? But I'm like, I can see Floyd just losing his mind about them not flying back with the team.
Yes. You put out this huge post on Twitter, Exchangeagram, Facebook, wherever, saying, hey, we are not happy with this. No one is more committed to, fixing it than we are. Really? Because you didn't fly back with your team so that you could stay back and party with your boys. And
head coach.
Why should any player on your team believe you are in it to win it at that point?
Oh, my goodness. Corey Curtis, News 2's our guest here on the program. Julio Jones is out. A.J. Brown's probably going to play.
Mm-hmm.
Corey, in hindsight, I mean, when they made the Julio trade, I didn't like it. They didn't have a starting tight end. They didn't have a right tackle. They took on $15 million in salary. They gave up a second-round pick. And one of the things about Julio was he's old and he's hurt. And everybody was like, no, Julio's the man, Jared. Julio's this. Julio's going to miss another game. And now it's 2 of the first 5. How concerned are we about Julio and kind of the Julio trade right now?
Well, I think there's room for concern. I keep going back to your appearance on Sports Extra where we played over and under, and I jokingly asked how many practices for Julio this season, over or under 8. And that might be a pretty accurate number when it's all said and done. Look, we've seen in Seattle that he can go out and be a difference maker for this football team, and they need him to be. And the hard part is what's the difference between hurt and injured? And you have to take his word that he's injured. But, you go back and you look at his injury chart for his career, and there's about 7 billion injuries on there. And, you wonder, and I'm not questioning his toughness. What I'm questioning is his durability, is how much are you going to have him? How much are you going to have him? Because right now that is really, really in question. And I know you despise Corey Davis, but right now his numbers are about right where A.J. and Julio are combined, except he's got 2 more touchdowns. And so, you didn't get a tight end. You didn't bring back Corey Davis. And you've got a guy who's as banged up as you were concerned he was going to be. And, if A.J.'s got to fight injuries an entire season again to get on the field, you have a hard time seeing where you're going to get where you need to go. Because, look, Chester Rogers is fine. Nick Westbrook-Akine is fine. Whatever. But those guys aren't going to get you where you need to go. They're complementary pieces. And these guys are star players, or at least for the Titans, they need to be star players. So I think there's room to be concerned. Obviously, I don't think the injury is that overwhelming. He's not on injured reserve because that's the only level that we have to gauge injury with the Titans on is, does a guy go on IR or not? So it doesn't seem to be that bad, and they need him back, and I'm guessing next week he'll be back.
Corey Curtis, News 2, is our guest on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. What's your hot take this week, Corey?
Well, I skirted the issue right on the bat because I was saving it for my hot take. I'm going to take the anti-Jared Stillman approach to this one. That while, yes, losing this game would be horribly embarrassing. It would be. It would be horribly disappointing, horribly embarrassing. It's not a must-win, and it's not the end of the world.
Oh,
if it should win.
Oh, no, it's the end of the world. It's the end of the world. It's
Jared,
the end of the world.
When
you put all your chips
switch,
in the middle for Julio Jones, and because you're telling people, hey, we think we can win a Super Bowl, and you can't beat the Jets and the Jags, you suck.
Well, you stink at that part of the season, and the key isn't to be great in September or October. The key is to be great in December and January. And so when Ryan Tannehill took over, the Titans were 2-4, and they were a completely different team at the end of the year. Just like what year was that? 2002 when they were 1-4, 1-5, yeah, and they wound up being one of the best teams in the National Football League. So there is still plenty of time for them because their division is so horrifically bad. It's 4-12 right now, 4-12. That is an embarrassment. That all they got to do is make the playoffs, and then you see what you can do from there. Because you look at it right now, Jared. And regardless of what their record is going to be, they don't look better than the Chargers or the Chiefs or the Raiders or the Bills. And I'm missing some teams, but the AFC looks pretty darn stacked, and teams that are playing a heck of a lot better than they are. So I'd like to see them play better, and I'd certainly like to see them beat another horrific team. We've all heard the stat that Vrabel's 0-4 against rookie quarterbacks, another dagger in the back going into this one. But while it would be easy to jump out the window if this one ends that way, there's just the division is too bad, and there's too much football to be played.
See, I don't care about the division, because I think the Titans are going to win that no matter what.
But that's all you need to make the playoffs.
Yeah, but if you make the playoffs this year and you can't beat the Jets and the Jags, and you make the playoffs, you'll get curb stomped in that first game. And I don't have any interest in that.
You're talking about games in early October and September. We've seen this before, how teams are completely different from one part of the season to the next. And we've seen it where teams have been awesome in
But
September,
we kept saying
October,
that last year about the defense. We kept saying that last year.
Yeah,
about
and it was terrible all the way through.
And it never got better. And
no.
I mean, to me, this is a heart game. If you can't beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, you ain't got the heart.
Well, that's why I said this is a between the years game. You know, who can get it straight and who can get out on the field and go.
You don't grow a brain in the middle of the season. You don't get a spine, and that's where I mean the obvious change at 2-4 for the Titans was the quarterback switch. I mean, that was the obvious change.
That was the big change. The offensive line started performing at a whole new level.
And I think a lot of that may have had to do with him, Tannehill.
Well, okay. That had part of it to do with it, yeah.
I go back to the fact that I don't think Vrabel will make – I think if they lose this game that Vrabel might have to make a move at coordinator. One of them. And I don't think he'll do it. I don't think Vrabel will do it. And that's where I'm like, okay, where's the spark to be made that he made in 2019? And I don't see him doing that.
Okay, let me ask you this. Which coordinator are you more questioning right now?
Bowen.
Okay.
Why?
Just wondering.
Which one are you questioning more?
I'm questioning Downing more.
Everybody except me hates Todd Downing. I'm neutral on Todd Downing.
I don't hate him, and I'm not saying to fire him. What's got me with what the Titans are doing is last game, the lack of play-action pass on first down when you got Henry banging away on the Jets. And then we saw it in this game, and we saw it in the Cardinals game. Tannehill's getting murdered back there, and they refuse to keep a tight end in. It's very simple. If 5 isn't enough, you keep in 6, and if 6 isn't enough, you keep in 7. And the issue wasn't how many Jets were coming; it was their ability to pick them up. But again, if 5 isn't enough to pick them up, you keep in 6, and if that's not enough, you keep in 7. And they've just been stubborn and refused to keep in any more, and they watch their quarterback go down time after time after time. It reminds me of a 24-game stretch that didn't go very well with the former head coach.
Mm-hmm. And we know who you're talking about because we've already talked about him today. And Ken Wisenhunt. Corey Curtis, News 2. We appreciate it, Corey. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Jaron. Have a great weekend.
Yep, Corey Curtis joining us on the program, presented by Invigorate Health again for your vitality, IV treatments, testosterone replacement, weight loss, you name it. InvigorateHealthTN.com. I want to hit on what Corey just brought up. I want to hit on this because I do think that if they lose on Sunday, Vrabel's got to make a coordinator change. He won't, but I think he should. We'll discuss next. Stillman and Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Let me tell you about Edmunds. Buying a car can be overwhelming, especially now that the demand is back and in full swing. Lucky for you, Edmunds has been taking the stress out of car shopping for over 50 years. Edmunds editors drive over 500,000 miles every year, testing thousands of hours on hundreds of new vehicles. They review almost every car on the market and make the best ones in each category, so you can narrow your search and compare options side by side to find the best vehicle for you. When you're ready, my friends at Edmunds make it easy to find the options in your area with accurate price estimates. They've got their long-term road tests. Their editors document driving and maintaining vehicles over the course of 20,000 miles in the first year of ownership. They report red flags, routine ins and outs, and everything else you need to know. Edmunds is here to guide you to your perfect vehicle. Visit Edmunds.com to see their best car rankings and search for vehicles near you. That's EDMUNDS.com for cars. There's Edmunds.
Well, I mean, I'm going to stay consistent to what I said at the time. And, Todd may be a really great guy, and I hope his family listens to the station. And I wish nothing but the best for individuals. But I've never seen a worse version of Todd Downing or of Derek Carr than I saw with Todd Downing. And, in fact, if I go all the way back to my Raiders fandom, the only offensive coordinator I can remember that was worse than Todd Downing in his year with the Raiders was a guy that was legit running an Airbnb until he got hired off the streets to run Art Shell's office. Like that's how bad the offense was. There was a lack of game plan. There was a lack of continuity. There was a lack of identity. Carr looked lost in that process. Like Downing was a glory child as a QB coach, and that's why they gave him the job for at the time Oakland. And it was the worst you could imagine. I absolutely didn't like the hire to begin with. You know that. I didn't mince words with it. I'm sure he's a great human being, but all I'm watching is another version of the same thing I saw before. Just because he's had time away from that job doesn't mean that he comes back much different. A lot of coaches don't. I think that Todd Downing is a liability to offenses that he coaches.
Fitzy didn't mince words.
Yeah, he made his point very clear. And he has every right to make his point clear. Because, he is a Raiders fan. He followed that team very closely.
Corey Curtis, and I accused him in the last segment of hating Downing, and Corey Curtis immediately goes, I don't hate Downing, and then listed off like 18 things he didn't like about Todd Downing. So we can put him in the leaning against category, right?
I think that's fair.
Okay, Caroline's leaning against, Ian's leaning against, Corey's leaning against. Jared is neutral on Todd Downing.
Take a stand.
No.
Why?
Because I have not seen enough to be able to make an educated guess. This is
4 weeks in.
This is not the Adam Vingan, never first guessing, always second guessing mentality. This is there's a lot to process with a coordinator, and
Leave
I
Adam
just haven't
Vingan out of this.
decided yet how I feel. Now,
you got to decide.
Here's the question. Should they fire a coordinator if they lose on Sunday? See, this is where I differ from Corey Curtis. And I think Corey was kind of joking about it being on brand, that I think the world comes to an end if they lose to Jacksonville on Sunday.
I think it might.
I don't think it's on brand. I'm sure it's on brand, because it's keeping it real.
It's very on brand.
It's keeping it real.
It's very on brand.
But last week, I told you they were going to lose to the Jets. I told you, I predicted it. The last saying of the show was you being like, no, they can't lose to the Jets. I'm like, look, I
didn't say
this.
that.
Yes, you did.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
I said it very well could happen, but it shouldn't because the Titans are a better team.
No. Here we go. I have the video. I'm going to do this. I have never done this before because I think it is very low rate, and I'm not a low rate guy. I am going to play the video from the show on Friday of last week. And because I cut this to send to people when it happened. This is why it's on my phone. So I'm literally going to put my phone up to the microphone. Okay, so it may sound bad. I don't know. Hold on, I got to turn this right here. Let's see.
Gosh, you looked at me like I was crazy when I said the Broncos were going to win.
I think the Jets are going to win. I think the Jets are going to win. I've seen this story way too many times. I have seen this way too many times.
This is your Titans heart talking, not your Titans mind talking.
Titans are cocky and arrogant, and Vrabel's trying to fight it away, and he's not going to be able to, and Tannehill's going to turn over the football, and Derrick Henry's not going to be able to completely take over the game. The defense is going to be a mess, and they're going to screw up on special teams, and the Jets will win 18-16. I am taking the Jets on Sunday. The Jets aren't going to go 0-17 this year, and they're going to take one. And the Titans, Ryan Poole. Listen to you at the very beginning of this.
Oh, gosh. I said, oh, gosh. I didn't say no way.
You could not believe that. You're like, that's your heart, not your head.
No, I said all last week that I thought it was a very big possibility because that's the thing that the Titans do is they mess up games. I didn't say that it was it wasn't a possibility at all.
So, Corey,
that was your Titans heart talking, though.
No, it was the truth.
Okay, now
it was the truth.
At the time, it was not the truth.
It was the prophecy.
Where's Chris when we need him? Our Titans in truth.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Chris Sanders. I was like, nah, he's busy flipping coins over there, trying to heads. No, I
love a coin toss.
He loves the coin toss. I would say this. I do not think that it is over the top to panic if they lose on Sunday. And Corey Curtis was like, it's early in the season and anything can happen. And it can, like, if you can't beat the Jets and the Jags, you can't beat the Bills and the Chiefs. And if you can't beat the Bills and the Chiefs and you can't beat the Rams, and then all of a sudden, like, you can't beat anybody who's any good if you can't beat the Jets and the Jags. And that's my whole point I'm making here. And I go back to this, which is Vrabel in 2019 said he made the move from Mariota to Tannehill because he needed a spark. That was what he said. Trying to spark the team.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only move he can make if they lose this game, because I think they'll need a spark at 2-3. They'll need a spark at 2-3. I think the only thing he can do is fire a coordinator, and I think it's got to be Bowen. Now, everybody else hates Downing more than Bowen. I've made up my mind on Bowen.
I think we came into this season with our minds made up about Bowen.
I was going to give him a chance.
I was willing to change my mind if I saw something on this defense that made me change my mind.
They've got too many guys that can't play, and they have too many busted coverages, and too many guys that have been in the league. Like, Jack Rabbit Jenkins is a starting corner in the NFL and has been a starting corner in the NFL for like the last 8 years. Now all of a sudden he stinks? Everybody else stunk last year. They asked Vrabel on Monday about the DBs playing off the receivers again, and he said, that's not how we coach them. We coach them to be up. Well, I mean, you've been coaching them now, Shane, for 2 years. So I made up my mind on Bowen because it's still so much crap that just falls through the cracks that I've just, enough. I've seen enough. Downing, I don't know who else you make the coordinator is you fire Downing.
I think that's what I was going to say. I think that's if the Titans do lose and they do decide to part ways with Shane Bowen, it's an easy decision to make because you have someone just waiting to fill in that role.
Sure. You just bring in Jim Schwartz, though
yes.
We know Vrabel's not going to do that.
You don't think he'll fire Shane Bowen, or you don't think he'll bring in Jim Schwartz?
I don't think he'll do either, but as far as like what's realistic, I don't think that he'll, like, if he fires Bowen, I think he'll promote somebody else and not Schwartz.
Really?
It's Vrabel.
But, don't do stuff to hurt the team, Mike. I feel like not promoting Jim Schwartz whenever you just fire your coordinator, hypothetically speaking. If you just fire your coordinator, you're not going to just promote the guy who had the job.
You're not going to make the obvious move that everybody else would make. Correct?
Yes, because your ego is so large that you can't even see the clear move that you should make right in front of you.
I think if he made the move, I think it would be to Haslett, which I wouldn't do, but that's what I think he would do. Do you think he needs to fire a coordinator if they lose on Sunday?
I don't know, because I feel like if you fire a coordinator, you're kind of looking at a bumpy ride for the rest of the season.
Ian, would you fire a coordinator if they lose on Sunday?
No, I would not.
Why?
I just don't think it's too early in the season. It's too early in the season. 5 weeks is just not enough.
I'm trying to save the season.
What's your problem with Tennessee football?
What do you mean?
Like Tennessee Volunteers.
With the Vols?
They fire coaches way too early, and it's a constant cycle of rebuilding. I think you're looking maybe at that same kind of situation if you fire either one of the coordinators in week 5.
Why would you have that problem if you fire Bowen?
Because then you're bringing in someone else and you're looking at the same kind of potential issues.
So I would
changing
argue,
the defense in the middle of the season, changing your coordinator in the middle of the season. You don't think that's going to cause any sort of rebuilding time?
Tennessee football's been bad for 20 years.
Okay.
So every time that they hire a new coach and they get, to me, the problem with Tennessee football is the fans have unreasonable expectations. Our expectations of beating the Jets and the Jags are not unreasonable.
Okay.
And so if you don't have a team that's good enough to go beat the Jets and the Jags, when you yourself acquired Julio Jones and thought you were a Super Bowl contender at the beginning of the year, that's people not doing the job. And when the Titans went to the AFC Championship game 2 years ago, the Vols have not been to an SEC Championship game since 2007. I was in high school the last time the Vols went to the SEC Championship game. Titans went to the AFC Championship game 20 months ago. So this idea of well, why should we just expect the Titans to be able to not bust coverages every game? It's because they've played at a high level recently. And then ever since Bowen has come in, they haven't played at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
So do I think there would be an adjustment if they made a switch to Schwartz? Yeah, I do. But I think it's so bad right now with Bowen, especially if you lose to the Jags, that it's you're going to lose anyways, so you might as well try something new, which is exactly what they did when they made the move from Mariota to Tannehill. It was, we know we can't win with Marcus. We probably can't win with Ryan, but let's give him a try. And then they did. They ended up in the AFC title game. That's my point. We know we can't win with Shane Bowen if we can't beat the Jets and the Jags, and we're busting coverages and had the worst defense ever last year. And so let's see if Jim Schwartz can do better.
What happens if the Titans do beat the Jags, which I think they should and will? What happens if they do beat the Jags?
Then you don't have to do anything. I mean, the whole start of the show was I'm giving up on the season if they lose this week. That means that I'm not giving up the season if they win. So if they win, then just keep on trucking and get ready for
what if they win
Buffalo.
by a field goal?
I'm not going to like it, but you probably keep your job. I mean, like losing, here's the thing.
But like, okay, winning by a field goal, you keep your job. What if the Titans lose by a field goal?
Someone's got to go.
That's a very slim margin.
This is the NFL.
I know what it is.
One time I was going through a breakup. I was very heartbroken. And I said to Floyd, and I was kind of keeping it to myself and whatever, and it was a big show. And I don't know if I've ever told this story on the air before, but it was the day the Predators acquired Matt Duchene. And it was a very big show. We had the exclusive interview with Duchene at 4 o'clock. Everybody's going to be listening. You know, it's July 1st. Predators make this huge move. And I'm all been out of shape going through this break. And I said to Floyd during a break, I go, when you're in the NFL and you're coaching and you're GMing and you've got something that goes on in your personal life, like Floyd has kids and grandkids and like, you know, things happen outside of, you know, I said, how do you do the job? Not that I was having a hard time hosting that day or anything else, but like, how do you do the job and keep your focus when you've got something going on in your personal life? And Floyd goes, I tell myself if I think things are bad right now, lose 3 games in a row and see what happens. Because it's a lot worse when you don't have a job. So, like, they know. Like, that is the line. Winning or losing, that is the line. Had the Titans beaten the Jets on Sunday, we'd have had people, after I'd have gone off on how bad they played. Like, let's say in overtime, the Titans march right down the field, Ferkser catches the football, Titans win, touchdown. I would have gone off about how bad that game was on Sunday, and we'd have had phone lines and text lines blown up about people saying, what do you mean, Jared? We won, and we're 3-1, and we're on our way, and because winning and losing matters that much to the fans. Like the binary of winning versus losing. You can't lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Can't lose. Anything after that is open for discussion and interpretation and whatever you want to call it. But as far as Jacksonville's concerned, you can't lose. And I think that they have to know that. They're like, that's the line. You cannot lose this game.
I feel like they do know that.
I think they know it too.
Yeah.
And I think Vrabel will fight it, like if they do lose, because I think Vrabel, like, you know, kind of wants to, you know, push back on public opinion. But I think they know that if they lose this game, like, there's a reckoning that's coming.
Especially coming off of a Jets loss.
Yes. Well, that's what,
yeah.
You know, it's not losing the game independently of everything else. It is combined
losing the game
combined
with everything else that has happened.
615-737-1025. We'll get to your text on this next. 615-737-1025 on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Let me tell all the fine folks out there to not miss the pregame show. That's right, pregame show, Jared Stillman, Mark Howard, Chris Sanders on Sunday, 9:30 to 11:30 at the Corner Pub in Bellevue at 8058 Highway 100 prior to the Titans and the Jags. The pregame show is brought to you by TriStar Moving, Parman Tractor and Equipment, FreedomTireGuys.com, FanDuel, E2 Roofing, Hillside Medical, Social Furniture, and Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 102.5 The Game. All right, I got a text in I want to read out over the air.
Please do.
Phone lines, by the way, driven by WisconsinHunter.com. Someone says, you have lost your mind. You are speculating about firing people in week 4. By the way, it's week 5, just, for
Well, we're going into week 5. Yeah.
Right. The spark is getting players back to play on offense and defense. Have you seen the injury list and injured reserve? I also thought you were big on not getting anybody in trouble for something that hasn't happened yet.
We haven't fired him yet.
Which is fair. The one thing I will say about this, here's my thing about all the coordinators or whatever. I mean, didn't Shane Bowen kind of walk into this season with something to prove? Like, didn't he walk into the season with a negative rating and he had to earn it back to positive? Like, he didn't start at 0 this year.
No.
And I have been very loud in protecting Todd Downing as far as jumping to conclusions because it's early in the season. But I need to explain something that I think people are going to have a hard time getting over, because I think people have made up their mind on me, which is just Jared's anti-Titan. That's just what people say. I mean, I might be a season ticket holder, and obviously I'm a fan, but it's just I'm Mr. Anti-Titan. It's the Jets and the Jags. Like, there need to be consequences if you lose to the Jets and the Jags.
If you are going for it, like the Titans kind of showed that they were in signing Bud Dupree and trading for Julio Jones, yes, I agree that there do need to be consequences. I agree with whoever texted you and that it's week 4/5.
Okay, but I don't care about the injuries.
Why?
And because everybody has injuries. This
is the NFL. This is the NFL.
This is the NFL. Nobody cared that Malcolm Butler had a broken wrist and you had to play with Tremaine Brock Sr. in the AFC Championship game 2 years ago. Nobody cared that the Kansas City Chiefs didn't have an offensive line in the Super Bowl. Nobody cares. And so I don't look, and especially like feeling bad about the Julio injury. Julio's always hurt. That's why we were worried about them acquiring him and paying full price. And it was like, no, it's fine. Is it? It's not if you lose to the Jags this week after you lost to the Jets last week without him. Then it's not fine. So, I don't know. I'm getting worked up over here today. It
hasn't even happened yet. You're all worked up.
See, that's the thing that I do wonder about this discussion, whether or not it's fair, is they haven't lost to the Jets. They haven't lost to the Jags, and we spent all day today talking about if they lose to the Jags. And I don't think they're going to lose to the Jags.
I don't think so either. And I think that come Monday, we can evaluate how the Titans won or lost to the Jags. Was it a bona fide beatdown? Then all of this conversation was for nothing, because then we can see, okay, the Jets game may have been a fluke, and then we can reevaluate week after week, what is this team? What is it, a win by a field goal? Because I have a feeling that our thoughts, I understand that wins and losses at the end of the day are the only thing that matters, but a win by a field goal and a win by 28 are two very different things.
Yes. You can't lose to the Jets and the Jags in back-to-back weeks. Let's go to your text line, 615-737-1025. What do we have?
Ralph texts in and says, without Henry, this team would be 0-4, and Vrabel is 0-4 against rookie quarterbacks.
Okay, so I didn't know this Vrabel stat about 0-4 against rookie quarterbacks.
I saw that on Twitter yesterday.
So I'm trying to think in my head, okay, Ian, who are the rookie quarterbacks Vrabel's played? Zach
Joe
Wilson
Burrow
last week. Joe Burrow.
Uh-huh.
Gardner Minshew.
Uh-huh. Deshaun?
No. He was there when Deshaun was there. Let's see, 2018 games they lost. Who's the rookie quarterback I'm missing? Oh, this is going to kill me. I'm going to stay up all night, all worked up about not knowing who the rookie quarterback the Titans lost to was. Joe Burrow, Gardner Minshew.
Zach Wilson.
There's
one more.
I don't know. I'm sure
we'll do some digging.
You'll get like 16 pops into the text line.
Yeah.
Somebody will say something, and I'll be like, oh,
it's
gosh.
this guy, you idiot.
How could I forget
that
Vrabel lost to so-and-so?
But I saw this.
Josh Allen. 2018 lost Josh Allen.
Oh, okay.
And that game was all kinds of screwed. That was when
Nick
they
Williams
lost.
drop.
Yes. Deion Lewis and Taywan Taylor fumbling the football. God, I am so glad. Like, when people talk about, like, Nick Westbrook-Akina and stuff like that. Like,
13-12, that game.
They played well. They did. And I'm like, dude, no. When you're relying on Nick Westbrook-Akina and Chester Rogers, it's the same as relying on Nick Williams and Taywan Taylor. It's the same. Like, they're not starters. Just like how you don't have a starting tight end, which gets me every single time. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Julio Jones out again. We will hit the headlines with Caroline. We'll do that coming up next on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Invigorate Health. That's right. I love Invigorate Health because if you're feeling like you're old or you're feeling lazy or lethargic or bloated or just fat and just out of shape and you feel like you're 66 instead of 26 and you want somebody who will make you feel like you're 26 again, you need to talk to my friends at Invigorate Health. Invigorate Health in Mount Juliet will take great care of you. Their trained physicians and nurses will do a diagnostic. They'll get your blood work, and they'll figure out where are your levels at. What do you need? What do you not need? They've also got the M-Sculpt Neo, which is non-invasive. They put it right there on the hard-to-get-rid-of fat areas, and you will see a 25% gain in muscle and a 30% on average loss of fat. It's that simple. And they will find a regimen that is right for you. It's not just a place where they pump you with testosterone or give you ED pills or give you an IV. It is all catered to you. That's why I love telling you about Invigorate Health. InvigorateHealthTN.com is their website. And next Wednesday and Thursday, Invigorate Health will have their mobile unit at the Farmhouse at 210 Almond Street, which is a few blocks away from Bridgestone Arena. They'll be offering discounted COVID tests since anyone going to the Preds game needs to show a negative COVID test or have proof of vaccination. Everyone that gets tested also gets a $10 gift card to Farmhouse. They'll be there again at Farmhouse, 210 Almond Street, Wednesday from 4 to 7 and Thursday from 4 to 6:30. Invigorate Health, InvigorateHealthTN.com. Stillman & Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025. The Game, Fireball Hot Take Friday, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. Hey, be sure to check out the NFL Game of the Week. That's right, as the Cleveland Browns take on the Chargers. Kickoff 3:05 on ESPN 1025. The Game brought to you by Red Spirits and Wine in Bellevue. Julio Jones out on Sunday for the Titans. I got to say this. How many games until Julio's injuries become so much of a big deal that it's like, oh, man, this is really biting him in the butt?
I think once you get into that stretch of Rams, Chiefs, Bills, if he's not able to play in those games, I think that's big time. Because
so
that's exactly.
That would be 5 games.
Uh-huh.
5 games out of 17?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm worried that he's going to get healthy and then get hurt again.
But I mean, like, that's exactly why the Titans brought him in, was to
win big games?
Yeah, was to be a game changer in the games that the Titans need to win, to be in the national conversation.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
But I do wonder, too.
Time for him to get back.
I mean, it's now feeling like it was a little bit more than some tightness in his hamstring. But I do wonder if the Titans are like, hey, Julio, this feels like a game that we should win handedly. We're going to sit you out to make sure that there is, any sort of tightness, soreness, anything that you may have in your hamstring is gone. I don't think you're buying that by the way that you're looking at, like, staring through my soul.
Did you watch last week?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Yes, he did.
Time for headlines with Caroline. Headlines presented by Fiero Tequila, the spiciest infused tequila on the market. The world belongs to the brave.
Before we head into Week 5, we have the updated Athletic NFL Power Rankings after Week 4.
Can I guess the Titans?
Yes.
18.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
And I do not even have a subscription to the Athletic right now.
Titans at 18.
So I didn't see that. I just guessed 18. Pulled it out of my rear end.
Down 3 spots from 15 last week.
And move them down further after they lose to the Jets.
What about 32?
Nah, that'll be this week.
No, I'm kidding. But they go on to say the Titans join the Falcons as the only 2 teams to rank in the bottom 10 in all 3 phases by Football Outsiders DVOA, defense adjusted value over average. So far, the Arthur Smith move from the Titans offensive coordinator to Falcons head coach has been a disaster for both sides. But while the shame of losing to the Jets will stay with the Titans for some time, their long list of injuries serves as a built-in excuse. More importantly, a decrepit division gives them time to get healthy and figure things out. So, I mean, that's not a great review of the Titans so far through 4 weeks, but there's a little glimmer of hope at the end of there.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's the division is so bad. They're terrible, but there's injuries and the division's bad, so knock yourselves out. Can I say this about Arthur in Atlanta?
Please.
Did people not expect him to suck? I mean, like, seriously. Like, Nick Cale used to work here at the radio station. I think he does, like, a weekend show in Atlanta. And so he, like, live tweets the Falcon games. And it's like, Dean Pease is terrible defense. And I'm like, dude, like, you watched Dean for years. You know he's a good coordinator. That team stinks.
Yeah, is it the coordinator's problem or is it the player's problem?
I mean, the Falcons literally pushed the chips into the middle of the table for like 3 years running after the Super Bowl, got burned every time. When you do that, it takes time to reset. You have to kind of tear it down a little bit to build up, and their cap is a mess. And so
Cap's a mess.
People are expecting Arthur to win games? What? Like, what? The team is awful.
I think it's the same kind of thing as putting so many expectations on a rookie quarterback.
Sure.
It's like, okay, we understand that you bring this guy in. You were a dumpster fire last year, obviously, if you have a rookie quarterback that you think is going to be any good. So, we want to see immediate changes. And I just don't think that's necessarily fair. Excuse me. But to be fair, we do say with the Titans that it's the coach's job and the coordinator's job to get those teams ready, to get those players ready. But also, the Falcons don't have the caliber of players as the Titans do.
What's amazing to me about the NFL is how sometimes, like, fans have a hard time setting low expectations. They never have a hard time setting high expectations. But, like, in 2016, the Titans were the worst team in the NFL at 3-13 in 2015. Mm-hmm. Mike Mularkey takes over the team. John Robinson has a great draft. They signed some guys in free agency who are decent players. Guys like, I want to say they added Logan Ryan that year, but they may have added Logan the next year. But they signed Rashard Matthews, and they made some moves here and there, and they were 9-7. And to be 9-7 with that 2016 team, they should have thrown a Broadway parade for Mike Mularkey. And they didn't. It was just like, oh, okay, good job, Mike. And it was like, what? And then I look at Arthur in Atlanta, and I'm like, that team is awful. Like, they're awful. And I don't know if Arthur's a good head coach or not, but it's weird. Like, when people have high expectations of their team, they never want to admit that their expectations aren't fair until it's too late, and then they get really, really mad, which is what Tennessee Vol fans do. Or they have a hard time looking at when the bar should be set low and you exceed it, being like, wow. I mean, I'll give you one right now. Matt Rule in Carolina. I'm stunned. Now, this isn't his first year, but I'm stunned that the Panthers aren't awful. Vic Fangio's 3-1 in Denver. They may not be any good for the whole season, but right now, I'm
looking
kind of
good.
impressed by it.
Yeah.
Harbaugh's had all those injuries in Baltimore. I think he's doing a great job. So that's just me on that one. What's next?
Speaking of injuries, Russell Wilson sidelined last night in the Thursday night game in their loss to the Rams with a middle finger injury. He banged it. Aaron Donald came down. His hand hit Aaron Donald's hand. Same kind of injury that Drew Brees had last year against the Rams. So, I mean, it was gross. His finger was all mangled. But Pete Carroll called it a badly sprained middle finger, which a sprain to me doesn't feel like it can be bad. It looked like a broken finger. But Pete Carroll did go on to say that it was too early to determine when he can be expected to return. He may possibly need surgery, but the Seahawks play the Steelers next Sunday. Russell Wilson has never missed a game in his NFL career, so this game could be the first. Geno Smith came in Russell Wilson's absence, threw a late fourth quarter interception, kind of sealed the deal for the Rams.
If you were wondering if Geno Smith still sucks, the answer is yes.
But I don't know if I can put that on Geno Smith. That was the Tyler Lockett problem.
Geno Smith sucks.
But Tyler Lockett tripped and fell in the middle of the field. The ball went right to where Tyler Lockett was supposed to be. I don't think I can put that interception on Geno Smith.
I mean, I'll say this. I was watching the game last night at a sports bar.
Okay.
And I had a lot of different things going on at one time, and I'm looking up at the TV, and I'm thinking the Seahawks are going to come back and win, and then all of a sudden I see Geno Smith playing quarterback. And I was like, what in the world happened? Seahawks aren't very good, though, are they?
I mean, I kind of called it yesterday.
If Russell plays the end of that game, do they win?
No.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
I mean, they got it down. What did they get it down to, like 14 or like 16,
I think it was like 23-17.
I think it was within 6 points at the end. Yeah.
It was like two-something minutes left.
Yeah,
it was
they got the ball back. Because
23-17.
McVay threw the ball like an idiot on third down. McVay threw the ball. And
yeah,
so they would get the ball back
with by Seattle.
Yeah.
And
then Geno
Seattle
Smith
got
threw
the
an
ball
interception
back. Geno
play.
Smith threw an interception. But I cannot put that on Geno Smith. I mean, I think that he had kind of one heck of a game last night to be coming in for Russell Wilson. But that one interception wasn't on him. And he was pissed.
I think Geno Smith sucks.
He was pissed.
You're going to have Geno Smith. What's next?
Finalists for the Hank Aaron Award came out. Honors the best offensive player in both American and National Leagues. So the finalists have been released. Yes, R.I.P. to Hank Aaron. Shohei Ohtani, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bryce Harper, Juan Soto, and Fernando Tatis Jr. all emerged as the finalists for the award. Bryce Harper was a little bit of a curveball for me there, no pun intended.
Why?
I mean, you look at Shohei Ohtani, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Juan Soto,
well,
and
there's
Fernando
one
Tatis.
there's one in the American League, one in the National League.
Yeah, I know that.
Bryce Harper's going to be the National League MVP. Like the last month of the year, Bryce Harper was literally unstoppable.
But Ohtani is the first player.
He's going to literally be the league MVP. And you are surprised.
He's not going to be the league MVP.
Yes, he is.
Bryce Harper?
Yeah. It's either him or Tatis Jr., and I think it's going to be Harper.
No. But Shohei Ohtani is the first player to be
nominated. Want to bet on it?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you want to bet?
Something juicy.
Okay. What do you want to juice?
I don't know.
Come up with some juice.
I'll come up with some juice. I'll think on it.
And we'll have your juice?
I'll think on it.
Okay.
But I'd like to continue, please.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. Shohei Ohtani is the first player who also pitches to ever be nominated for this award. So that's kind of a fun little tidbit there.
You would be surprised to know that when Babe Ruth played, the Hank Aaron Award did not exist.
Yes, the Hank Aaron Award started in 1999, and if my memory serves me correct, I
Babe
believe
was dead for 70 years.
Babe Ruth was not playing at that time.
Yes, Babe was gone for a little bit of time in 1999.
Yes.
Those are headlines with Caroline, presented by Fiero Tequila, the world's spiciest infused tequila on the market. The world belongs to the brave. Coming up next on a Fireball Hot Take Friday, we'll take your calls on the Titans, 615-737-1025. Plus, Julio Jones out again. How disappointed should we be, and how worried are we about these wide receivers without Julio? We'll discuss that coming up next. And later this hour, we have got to get to Tim Tebow's comments on Urban Meyer. Not because it affects the game on Sunday, but because it's incredibly funny. 615-737-1025. Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Nothing goes down so smooth and tastes so great. I'm sure Tim's probably not interested in the Fireball Whiskey, but that's okay because it is perfect for you. If you're looking a way to celebrate this weekend, and I'm going to a wedding, celebrating Blaine and Nick, and we should be cheersing ice-cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. It goes
Congratulations
down so
to Blaine and Nick.
Thank you. It goes down so smooth, and it tastes so great. Please ignite the night. Please do it responsibly, and please be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey.
Ruled out.
Julio and Kern.
There you go. Mike Vrabel telling you Julio out Sunday. I'm not mad at Julio for being out on Sunday.
You're not mad. You're just pissed.
I'm concerned that they traded for an injured guy and invested a lot into him and that he's injured again. Because injured guys stay what?
Injured.
Dumb guys stay what?
Dumb.
Fat guys stay what?
Fat.
And here you are. So, I mean, I am getting a little worried that the big investment that everybody thought was going to lead them to the promised land now looks like Randall Cunningham going to the Vikings after that first year.
But to be fair, do the Titans need Julio to beat the Jags? And I understand that they lost to the Jets last week without him.
Sure.
But I think this Titans team should be able to beat the Jags handedly without Julio.
No, I'm more worried about the fact that Julio may not be available for other games. But
I go back to what I said, is that if you push him for a game that you don't necessarily need him, then maybe that maintains him for a game that you actually really do need him.
I mean, if you start walking around thinking that there are games that you don't need Julio Jones for, you're going to lose those games. And I think last week was an example of that, which, Robbie and Joe, I know they're not going to say that they can just beat the Jets, but I think, and it's like, right, but. And then they lost to the Jets. I mean, I expect them to beat the Jags without Julio Jones. My point is, I was worried when they made the trade for Julio that Julio was going to get injured, and Julio has gotten injured. And so I'm worried that when Julio comes back, he's going to get injured again. And then you're going to find yourself at the end of the
bring
season.
him back and risk
I'm
injury
not saying,
against the
I'm
Jags?
I'm not arguing to bring him back. I think you're looking at me like you think that I want him to get out there and play. I'm telling you I'm concerned. I'm concerned
That's
that Julio
fair.
is going to be chronically hurt because he has been chronically hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And that the Titans, I mean, honestly, the more I think about it, this is the only show in town, the only anywhere that legitimately questioned that trade, right? I feel like I'm the only person, and you to an extent as well, I'm the only person who went on record, put their hand in the air, said, don't do it. Don't do it. And everybody said, well, but you add Julio Jones to the mix, and if you add Julio, then you. And I'm like, no. You add a guy like this on your terms. So it's like, okay, we'll make the trade for him, but we're going to give you a fifth. And we're only going to do this, you're going to cut the guaranteed money, and you're going to make about $11 million this year instead of $15, and then you got no guaranteed money for next year. And they didn't do any of that. So now they're beholden to him. And we've been worried about personality issues, and we've been worried about age issues and production issues and injury issues. And now, through 4 weeks into the fifth week, we've had discussions about personality issues, and he hasn't had the production like we would expect, and now he's hurt. So, I mean, you tell me. You invested a lot in this. You don't have a tight end because you invested in Julio. And so, forget about the Jags game. This is about what you acquired for the season. What you acquired for next season. And I just think that when you take big risks and you swing and miss, and I'm not saying that they've missed on Julio yet. I'm just saying that this is trending in the direction that I was scared to death of when I put my hand up in the air and said, whoa now. Whoa now. And that's what I see right now with Julio being out again. Because then next week we'll have to see, is Julio going to play? Oh, no, Julio might not play against and then all of a sudden now it's an ankle. Okay.
And I think it's fair to use this week as a concern moving forward, because I don't want to twist your words, but I feel like what you're saying is not necessarily worried about him not playing against the Jags. It's moving forward. It's his availability in the future.
Let's go to James, 615-737-1025, phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Fireball Hot Take Friday. What you got, James? Go ahead, James.
How you guys doing today? I'll say
good.
If we need Julio Jones and A.J. Brown to beat the Jags, which we didn't have and lost to the Jets, then we're not who we thought we were. And you got to start with that. We all thought the defense was going to be improved. We'll see. We all thought Tannehill was the guy. We'll see.
No, hey, I'm with you on this. I appreciate your call.
My biggest gripe is my GM. I'm sorry. His draft class, his draft class, his free agent signings, they're garbage, man. Overall.
Yep, thank you for your call, James. Robinson very much, I think, goes under the microscope if all these moves don't work. So, like, Caleb Farley's supposed to play this week. Bud Dupree came out yesterday and said he rushed himself back from injury, and I think Bud's going to play because he was a full participant in practice all week, I believe. And, yeah, I mean, I definitely think Robinson – I don't think Robinson is on the clock other than just the traditional sense that you're always on the clock. Mm-hmm. Like you're always one day closer to dying. You're always one day closer to,
Sheesh.
I mean, every day you live is one less day than you were.
I know that. I know how life works. I'm aware.
So it's like the same as Robinson is always one day closer to firing because, that's the reality.
That's just life.
But I don't think I don't think the Heat should be on Robinson. I do wonder. And I don't know if this is irresponsible to say. I'm going to
say it.
I'm going to say it's not irresponsible to say. If you were Robinson and you thought you drafted good players and these coaches can't get them coached up, would you fire the coaches because you think somebody else could come in and coach up the players that you brought in that you're not getting the production out of?
Probably.
And to kind of deflect away from you?
Well, clearly Robinson liked something about those players, or else he wouldn't have drafted them. So if you're not getting the production out of these players that you were high on when you drafted them, then you don't necessarily think that they are the issue. Now, maybe he saw something in them when they were in college and they just haven't been able to recreate it in the pros. But I mean, I don't think that Robinson would necessarily do it vindictively to say, I'm saving my job, so I'm taking yours.
Sure.
But I think just naturally he would think, okay, well, I liked these players in college. They're not producing how I wanted them to, so you're the problem.
Right, like you benched Elijah Molden after a couple of mistakes, and I need you to coach him up so they can play.
Yeah.
And surely they like Dylan Radins for something, and he can't come in and play.
Mm-hmm.
And I do wonder if Vrabel is not great at coaching rookies.
I mean,
he had success with A.J. Brown.
This rookie class hasn't been extraordinary.
He had success with A.J. Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have success off the jump with Landry and Evans. That was his first year.
Mm-hmm.
He had success with A.J. Brown. Hooker didn't play a big role in the 19 team. Nate Davis didn't play a big role until like December of that year, November and they didn't have a choice but to play Nate Davis at right guard.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a choice. There wasn't a player out there. So, then you think the last 2 years. And remember, Christian Fulton was a healthy scratch in the middle of last year. And they didn't have any corners. So I do wonder if that's something that would have crossed Robinson's mind. So I don't know if that's irresponsible or not to say. 615-737-1025, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. You know I love my friends at Hiller. They take great care of me, and I promise you that they will do the same for you. My friends at Hiller, you've noticed all the inventory shortages and empty shelves everywhere. Now there are serious shortages on equipment and products for your home. HVAC systems, tankless water heaters, generators, they're all going to be extremely limited in 2022. If you need a replacement, call my friends at Hiller today. Don't wait until you are out of options. Hiller has special financing available. Buy now and pay nothing until next year. Their work is backed by the Happy You'll Be. Your service is free guarantee. They're online at happyhiller.com. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Vols, the Preds, and the Vanderbilt Commodores. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today. Stillman and Company, ESPN 1025. The Game. Join Chase McCabe tomorrow at Brew House, 198 Highway 100 for Chasers Tailgate. Stop by and hang with Chase. Watch the SEC Game of the Week and enjoy beer specials and great food.
It will be me.
It'll be you.
It will be me. You could come hang out with me on Saturday.
So not Chaser?
Chase is doing a Preds event on Saturday.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. It is still Chasers Tailgate featuring Caroline Fenton.
Why didn't I get invited to that?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just more fun.
I mean, clearly. Clearly. So, let's give away, speaking of that Preds game, let's give away some tickets right now while we can. 615-737-1025. Be caller number 5 right now, and you can win a pair of tickets to see the Predators tomorrow take on the Carolina Hurricanes in the preseason finale. So, good luck to you on that. I do want to get to these Tim Tebow comments, but this is literally just dropped. Breaking news. John Gruden used racist words in 2011 email to describe NFL PA's DeMaurice Smith. By the way, this should be a note to anyone. Anytime you send anything via text or email, you better be able to own it. You better be able to own it. Like, there are things that I've said and done that I literally know that I'll have to own one day if it ever comes out. Not that it's like this, but just like, in general.
Right. Internet is forever.
Is forever. So, according to this, John Gruden used a racist trope to describe executive director of the NFL Players Association, DeMaurice Smith, in a 2011 email the Wall Street Journal reports. DeMaurice Smith, I don't even feel comfortable saying this on the radio.
I wouldn't.
But you have to because it's the news.
Okay.
So,
well, he said it, not you.
Right. So,
it's incredibly racially insensitive.
It is incredibly racially insensitive.
Yes.
I can't believe Gruden said this. Like, this is... All right, so here's what I'm saying. I'm going to say that I say it. I absolutely do not condone any of this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't want to hear it, turn it, for right now.
Fair.
Gruden wrote in a July 2nd, 2011 email to then Washington General Manager Bruce Allen. Of course Bruce Allen's involved in this. According to a report, Gruden was a commentator on ESPN. Quote, DeMaurice Smith, Gruden said, has lips the size of Michelin tires.
That is so bad.
Oh my God.
Bad.
Gruden told the Wall Street Journal, I was upset. I used a horrible way of explaining it. I don't think he's dumb. I don't think he's a liar. I don't have a racial bone in my body, and I've proven that for 58 years. Smith said in a statement to the Wall Street Journal that he would not let racism define him. Quote, this is not the first racist comment that I've heard, and it probably will not be the last. This is a thick-skinned job for anyone with dark skin, just like it has always been for many people who look like me and work in corporate America. Smith told the Wall Street Journal, people are sometimes saying things behind your back that are racist, just like you see people talk and write about using thinly coded and racist language. The NFL is investigating the situation, and Gruden could face disciplinary action. The NFL said in a statement, the email from John Gruden is denigrating DeMaurice Smith is appalling, abhorrent, aberrant, and wholly contrary to the NFL's values. We condemn the statement and regret any harm that its publication may inflict on Mr. Smith or anyone else. Gruden reportedly discussed the report with his players, according to The Athletic's Vic Tafur, and said he had reached out to Smith to try and apologize, but has not heard back. My guess is you got to take Gruden off the sidelines right now.
I mean, when you are a head
Indefinitely.
coach,
But, I'm not saying fire Gruden, though I don't like this, and you may have to do that. I don't know how the players can.
I mean, when you're a head coach of a league that's predominantly black and you have several players on your team that are black and you use very clearly racially charged statements against a black person in charge in the league, I would have a very hard time if I'm in that locker room trusting him. I mean, those are very blatantly racist statements.
God, that's bad. That's bad.
I mean, just have respect for people.
That's bad.
It's bad.
I think this is what I think you probably do. Gruden, now he said he already talked to players. Gruden's got to own it. And he did in his statement to the Wall Street Journal, but he's going to have to earn it more than that. He's going to have to earn it like Tiger Woods, press conference apology, own it. He's going to have to own it. And I would say suspended indefinitely.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mark Davis and the NFL probably have to figure out how long that indefinite is. I mean, I don't know. Some of this depends, too, on how the players feel about it, right?
Yeah.
It's like a crime where somebody has the option to press charges or not. It's like if the players are upset with Gruden to where they can't welcome him back in the locker room, then you probably have to move on from him. If it's the kind of thing where the players are upset about what he said and he's, suspended for a month or something like that, there is probably a part of me that thinks that even though what Gruden – I mean, look, I know what Gruden said, and I don't know Gruden.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's racist. What he said was really wrong.
Yes.
And there should be punishment for that.
Yes.
But, if I'm a player on that team and I don't think Gruden's racist, if I'm a player that doesn't think that.
You have to stand up for him.
You almost have to look at it like, dude, if you suspend him, that's going to hurt us this season.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm mad at him too, but you're going to hurt us for the season if something like that happens. So there's a lot of things in play here.
And it's a tough situation because it's almost like the Raiders in the NFL would have to set a precedent, but this is not necessarily a black and white kind of situation. It's all very gray,
right,
given the circumstances and given the reaction from players. So it's a tough situation.
This is what I go back to, cancel culture, where people are like, cancel culture, cancel. And I'm like, no, when you do things like this, there are punishments and consequences that come with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, look, as I said, I'm not perfect, and I don't ever try to pretend I am perfect. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, but there are some things that just, it's out there. And then my question is, how do other people react to it? Because I'm not black. So for me to sit here and say, how I feel about what John Gruden said may not totally be fair one way or another. I do want to get to Tim Tebow's comments.
Yes.
And so Tim Tebow was on First Take today, and he was asked about Urban Meyer. How do you love that? Tim Tebow's on Fridays with Stephen A. Hey, we got to ask you about the scandal involving your next-door neighbor.
This isn't going to be our typical
who was
fun back and forth.
Your coach a month ago. Here's what Tebow said.
I think, first of all, this is a very disappointing, frustrating, and honestly heartbreaking situation.
Heartbreaking, maybe not.
When I first saw and heard about what happened, my heart was hurting for Miss Shelley, Coach's wife, someone that I love very much, and his daughters, who I'm very close with, and who I've talked to both of them this week, and also had the chance of talking with Coach. And it was a very difficult week, and my advice to him was to apologize, to admit it, to learn from it, and to never repeat it. And, Coach shared with me that it was, one of the hardest times of his life. And, he apologized, but he didn't need to apologize to me. I know this has weighed so heavy on his heart, and he is hurting. And I do think, for some of the guys, he will have to earn back their trust and respect. And I think he really wants to do that. This is not something that I think anybody in his family takes lightly. This is a very serious situation. It's a very disappointing situation. But I also know that Coach isn't taking it lightly, and he knows what a big deal this is, how disappointing it is to so many people.
I think we know where Tebow's heart is, and I feel bad for Tebow because I think he truly cares about Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
But Tim says those things as if we haven't watched Urban Meyer just trample over everybody for 20 years. That's the thing that bothers me.
It's not an isolated incident. No. And it's not the worst of his offenses.
I'm thinking about Coach's family. And I'm thinking about what Coach did when his wide receivers coach was beating his wife and told Shelley, Miss Shelley, who I love dearly, told Miss Shelley, and Miss Shelley probably told Urban, and they didn't do anything about it.
Well, and I don't doubt that this is an incredibly difficult time for Urban Meyer and his family. It's probably embarrassing. It's difficult. They've probably had to have some really awkward conversations. So I don't want to bring his family into this because I don't want to say how they should or shouldn't feel. But come on, Tim. Urban has done things like this before, maybe even worse.
Do you think
and
Tebow
this is
knows,
pretty bad?
Like, do you think Tebow is like too kind-hearted of a guy to know that Urban's a bad dude?
I think it would be really hard because it's like that's your college coach that you won championships with and that you won a Heisman Trophy with. Like, I think that it's the same kind of thing that, like, if your dad does something bad, it would be really hard to look at your dad the same way that people would look at him because it's your dad and you love him. I think it's the same kind of thing.
Sure. Caroline's coming up next. We'll pick some college games. Then, of course, we got Chad Withrow coming up as well. Caroline's is presented by BetUS. Caroline going to tell us about BetUS.
I want to tell you about my favorite sports book, and that is BetUS. Football is back finally. We've got some college games this weekend. We've got some NFL games on Sunday. So get in on the action and do it with BetUS. They've been America's favorite sports book for over 25 years. That's exactly why I endorse them. They have integrity. They have longevity. They've been around a long time, so you know that you are going to get paid when you win with BetUS. They offer everything. They have live betting, MMA, golf, horses, esports, all kinds of crazy bets. You name it, they've got it. So call them today. They'll walk you through setting up an account. It is super easy. All you have to do is call 1-800-79-BET-US. That is 1-800-79-BET-US. Nobody in the industry gives bigger bonuses than BetUS. So join now, mention GAME, G-A-M-E, and you can get a sign-up bonus on your first deposit. Nobody beats BetUS. I bet at BetUS, so should you. So go now to BetUS.com. Join today, put in promo code GAME, G-A-M-E, for a sign-up bonus on your first deposit. That is BetUS.com.
Stillman and Company, hey, hang out with Caroline Fenton this Saturday morning at 10 a.m. on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube as she previews the SEC football slate with Southeastern Carolines. She'll give you her picks of the day and get you set before kickoff around the South. It says at the bottom of this, reference one or two key games this weekend. What are one or two key games we're referencing this weekend?
Well, Georgia at Auburn, I think is going to be a great game. And also Florida Vanderbilt that has a very, very wide spread. And I've had a tough time trying to pick that game. So, I mean, Florida's going to win for sure.
Florida Vanderbilt. Hey, Florida Vandy, everybody. We need Caroline's going to break down Florida Vandy on Saturday tomorrow.
The spread is 38.5. That's kind of tough. That's a very wide spread.
I'm just saying.
Vandy's also very bad.
By the way, and I think I've already mentioned this today. I may not have. And this is a way people can win tickets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's Fireball Hot Take Friday, so I'm in a good mood. You can see Daughtry at the Ryman Auditorium on November 3rd by subscribing to our YouTube page, and you'll enter for your chance to see Daughtry. Once you subscribe, email us at promotions@cromwellmedia.com with your YouTube handle, and one winner will be chosen on Monday. I just want everybody to know out there, Southeastern Carolines tomorrow morning, the only way you can watch it, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and that it is legitimately Caroline's job. As we have talked about many a time, and by many a time, I mean once, it is legitimately Caroline's job for people to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So, I think she's doing a great job on the air. When we hired her in March, I had very high expectations, and I think Caroline was very eager to meet those very high expectations. I think she's done a fantastic job as the company of the Stillman and Company radio show. But if those YouTube subscriptions don't get up, we may have to start, thinking.
Well, that's a little nerve-wracking first and foremost. So, ease my nerves and subscribe to the Lauren 25 The Game.
Well, it's not my job, and it's not Ian's job.
No.
It's your job.
I know. So I'm telling the people out there, ease my nerves. Help me out. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so I can show off and say, hey, look at all this fun stuff I've been doing on the YouTube page.
Southeastern Carolines tomorrow, by the way. You can watch it there. Time now for Carolines.
Carolines is brought to you by BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook for over 25 years. You can sign up at BetUS.com, mention game, and get a sign-up bonus on your first deposit. Red River Rivalry.
There you go.
That's a tough one.
When did it go from the Red River Shootout to the Red River Rivalry?
I'm not quite sure.
I think you could agree with me. I am not one of these people who is offended by everything. And I'm also not one of these people who, the second that they say, hey, let's get rid of statues of Confederate generals and KKK people, then I'm like, wait a minute. I think I'm fairly towards the middle on that, right?
Yeah.
Red
River Shootout to me personally does not offend me because it's very Wild West.
I think that's the whole point of it, right?
It's kind of fun. And
yes.
Red River Rivalry is just too difficult to say.
Yes.
River Shootout, poof.
The Red River Shootout, that's what it was for forever. And I can't remember when it became the Red River Rivalry. And I literally think that I complain about this on the radio every year that this game happens. But every time I hate it. I hate it because it is you'll get fired from ESPN if on the broadcast you say something like, oh, yeah, just, it's Red River If you say Red River Shootout, see ya.
It's an honest mistake if that's what it's been called forever.
Cancel culture.
Cancel culture is alive and well.
You know what we'll get to that later. Okay.
Well, the Red River Rivalry is this weekend. Give me Texas plus 3.5. I don't think they're going to win. I think Oklahoma will win, but I think it's going to be by a field goal. Oklahoma is not the Oklahoma that everyone has hyped them up to be over the past couple of years.
Sure.
Spencer Rattler is not the quarterback that they've hyped up Spencer Rattler to be. And also, Oklahoma is 0-4 on the season against the spread. So I think that Texas keeps it close. I'm going to take Texas plus 3.5.
Do you think I'll get in trouble if I call Spencer Rattler Malibu's most wanted?
Why would you call him Malibu's most wanted?
I feel like I watched the West Virginia game, and I feel like there's some Malibu's most wanted vibes from Spencer Rattler.
I don't even know what that means.
It was like a movie from the mid-2000s. Long story.
The way that it looks?
Just the
vibes.
Yeah, the vibes.
I watched what was it, QB1? Was that the show he was on?
I don't know.
I was watching one of those shows of him in high school, and he was one cocky son of a gun in high school.
I'm not interested in Spencer Rattler. I do think Oklahoma's going to beat Texas pretty handily. I just don't think Texas is very good.
I don't think Oklahoma's very good.
I don't either, but Oklahoma.
West Virginia kept it close, and I think Texas is better than West Virginia.
Oklahoma has to at least put on the facade that they're not a bad team. Because they're still in the top 10 in preseason. And
they're always going to be in the top 10 every year.
But here's my theory. And Joe Rexrode got all worked up about this the other day, which tells me that it's the right theory, which is Oklahoma goes out there on Saturday and wins this game by 30 points, and I don't think they'll win by 30, but if they win and just annihilate Texas, people will start talking about them over Cincinnati. That's the one thing that you have to realize. I think that Lincoln Riley knows that. I don't think Texas is very good, so I am going to take Oklahoma minus the 3. I think they'll probably win by 13, 14 points. This will be the best performance of their year. It's either that or they're just not very good, and those games against, what was it, Tulsa or Tulane?
Tulane kept it close.
I mean, then we know that they're just completely fraudulent. So I'll take Oklahoma here.
We've also got Arkansas at Ole Miss. Give me Ole Miss minus 5.5, which is a lot closer than I kind of expected it to be. Matt Corral threw 6 interceptions against Arkansas last year, so I think he's going to be coming back against Arkansas and say, look, I'm not the turnover machine that I was last year. Also, KJ Jefferson, Arkansas's quarterback, has been dealing with a knee issue, and that's his biggest threat is on the ground. So if KJ Jefferson isn't mobile, then Ole Miss's defense is just going to eat Arkansas's offense alive. And I think that Ole Miss is going to go off and prove a point after their loss to Alabama.
This kind of feels like the bronze medal game, right? Like, so last week, Georgia got Arkansas and Alabama got Ole Miss. And so now Ole Miss plays Arkansas.
Like they're fighting for the third best team in the SEC.
I mean, I think I'm going to take Ole Miss minus the 5.5 too. But here's my question. How do the Rebels respond to the way Kiffin acted before the Alabama game? I would be not so much that. That was like the culmination of the cockiness and the trolling of Nick Saban that I feel like was going on for a couple of weeks from Lane Kiffin. And I think it's one of those things where, like, everybody likes it, you know, when you think you've got a chance, like, look at Lane, he's great. Then you get embarrassed by Alabama, and it's like, ooh, dude, shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, right.
And I do wonder how the players feel about that, because Lane Kiffin set them up to fail on Saturday. You know, the way that he was trolling Nick Saban, it was Trevor came on the show on Tuesday and said that after Kiffin hung 40-something points on Saban last year, that he was kind of, you know, pushing the envelope in the way he'd talk about how they played Alabama or Alabama's defense or Saban being too old or things like that. And then all the going for it on 4th down. Now, generally,
ridiculous.
Well, normally players like that, though. You know, hey, coach believes in us.
Players also like going for 2 every single time, but is that always the best game plan?
No, it's not. And I do wonder if the players look at Lane Kiffin like, Coach, you hung us out to dry last week. Now, look, they wouldn't have beaten Alabama no matter what. But I do wonder how the Ole Miss players feel about that. But I'll take Ole Miss in this game against Arkansas, even though you know I love Sam Pittman. If KJ Jefferson was 100%, I take Arkansas. I'll take Ole Miss.
Arkansas to win or Arkansas plus 5.5?
Both.
Interesting.
But he's not.
He's not. He's not. We also have South Carolina at Tennessee. Give me Tennessee minus 10.5. I thought this was kind of easy money here. Tennessee's coming off their biggest game of the season, their biggest win, 62-24 blowout at Mizzou. South Carolina just is not very good. I do think that Shane Beamer can find some success there. It's just not quite yet. They barely beat Troy last week. Hendon Hooker is averaging 9.5 yards per attempt. I think Tennessee found their guy at quarterback. Give me Tennessee minus 10.5.
So I told you that I've got buddies that are South Carolina fans that are like, oh, man, we've got a shot to win this week. And I'm like, I don't think so. Here's the one thing I will say. Most impressive Vols game of the season last week, right?
Yeah.
Given the circumstances and the way the offense played and on the road, blowing out Missouri. How often do the Vols go out there as soon as you start to feel good about them and go out and do the exact opposite thing?
See, I think that's the one caveat here was last week just a fluke with a terrible defense and your offense was clicking? Or if you do it in back-to-back weeks, that like we know what this offense can be. So that's kind of what I'm interested to see. Can you do it in back-to-back weeks? Or was it just everything, all the stars aligned last week?
Well, you just picked Tennessee, so you think they can.
I think they can, yes.
See, here's where I am. I'm going to take Tennessee too, but that 10.5 is a lot. Give me South Carolina plus 10.5. I think the game. I think Tennessee's going to win. I do, and I think Hooker. Like the one thing I'll say is, before the season, I was poo-pooing Tennessee and the idea of, well, you know, what can they accomplish this year? And even if these quarterbacks, you know, they're not going to be any good, and even if they are, it doesn't matter. And I do think that there is something to be said that if Hendon Hooker is Josh Heupel's guy and can run the Josh Heupel offense and they can put up a bunch of points, that may resonate with recruits, which I think is a good thing. At the same time, I can't just go off on last week. It's like the thing I said yesterday about the Titan fans. They're like, how can you pick the Titans to demolish the Jags when they lost to the Jets? And I'm like, you can't just go off of last week. And going into last week, we were concerned that this was going to be a really close game with Missouri. I don't think much of South Carolina. I think now the win over Missouri tells me, okay, now the question mark game on the schedule is Kentucky for Tennessee. They will win this game against South Carolina, but 10.5 is a lot of points. And I wonder if maybe they get a little too cocky after the way they played against Missouri. And South Carolina's got a much better defense than Missouri. And, this is a big game for South Carolina. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee goes out and blows out South Carolina, because I don't think much of South Carolina. But I would just argue on the side of I could kind of see it both ways here.
That's fair.
So I'm going to take them plus 10.5.
But I do think you have to look at the fact that Tennessee has been using 2 different quarterbacks. Because you say you can't just go off of last week. Well, that's only one of 2 other performances that we've really seen from Hendon Hooker.
Sure. I mean, look, they were in a game with Florida. They were in a game with Florida until they screwed it up. I mean, they let Florida pull away from that game more so than Florida did the pulling away. Tell us about BetUS.
Carolines is brought to you by BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook for over 25 years. You can sign up at BetUS.com, mention game, and get a sign-up bonus on your first deposit.
Chad Withrow, Outkick 360, will join us next on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. We'll get Chad's thoughts on the SEC. We'll get his thoughts on they're going to be in College Station for Alabama A&M. We'll get his thoughts on Georgia and Bama, who's the 3rd best team in the SEC. And, of course, this Tennessee game. That's next. Fireball Hot Take Friday. Stillman & Company, CSP at 102.5 The Game. And it is Stillman and Company on ESPN 102.5, the game delivered by TriStar Moving. Fireball Hot Take Friday, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. Big college football weekend. Kind of felt like a separation Saturday last weekend, but we got some big ones. Chad Withrow from Outkick 360 joins us now on the program. He'll be live in College Station, Outkick the Tailgate tomorrow, where Alabama takes on Texas A&M. So we got a bunch of college stuff to get to. And then we got to get, Chad, we'll get to the Titans later, though the Reese family is mad at you for your proclamation of a victory over the Jets last week. But I do want to start with last weekend in college football. Georgia separated, Alabama separated. We still got some good games this weekend, but how much did we learn last weekend about probably what the next 2-3 months are going to look like in college football?
I mean, we learned what we already presumed, and that's that Alabama and Georgia are just light years better than the field. That was my fear going into those games. You know, we talked about the two big games last week. It was, an 18.5-point spread and a 15.5-point spread. Mm-hmm. But it was the proving ground. It was, okay, can any of these teams actually play with Alabama and Georgia? We found out that Alabama might be mortal when they almost lost to Florida on the road. But I think, that there's a lot of factors that went into that. But you look at those two games, and I think it's probably disheartening for the rest of the SEC and the rest of the country when you watch those dominating performances, especially Georgia. Georgia went into that game with a backup quarterback, a glorified game manager, and just stomped Arkansas. Their defense is playing at a rate that we haven't seen in the last 20 years in college football. It is incredible to watch that Georgia defense. So, I think we found out what we thought going into the weekend, that it's Alabama, it's Georgia, it's a big step down, then it's everyone else. And now the real intrigue is who gets the right to lose to Alabama and Georgia in the college football playoff to set up Alabama and Georgia round 2, because of whatever happens in Atlanta, it's going to be repeated in the college football playoff. And now all the speculation is, are we going to see 2 SEC teams and 2 Big Ten teams in the playoffs? So to me, spots 3 and 4 are now what's the most fascinating thing about the college football playoff race, because we know Alabama and Georgia, they're a step above everyone else in the country.
Would you not consider, and I know you said that some people are thinking 2 Big Ten teams, right now, would you consider Cincinnati the 3rd best team in the country? Who's the 3rd best team in the country to you?
I would. Right now, based on results, I'd probably say Penn State is the 3rd best team in the country, just based on their resume. But, yeah, I think Cincinnati's got a claim for a playoff spot. I think Cincinnati's biggest problem is BYU. If there's going to be a non-Power 5 team that crashes the party, BYU's got a chance at going 5-0 against the Pac-12 with a win over Arizona State. Arizona State right now looks like the best team in the Pac-12. It's not a very good Pac-12, but they're the best team in a Power 5 conference. Cincinnati's going to have 2 Power 5 wins, Indiana and Notre Dame, if they run the table. So I think the biggest hurdle for Cincinnati now, even though I think Cincinnati is better than BYU, is the fact that BYU's got a good shot at going unbeaten as an independent and having those 5 wins over Pac-12 teams. If that happens, I think BYU's got a better claim from a resume standpoint than Cincinnati.
So I look at the college football, and I think to myself, your point is correct about, at least to me, about Alabama and Georgia having separated themselves from the field. What I wonder is if these two teams get to Atlanta and they're both undefeated, they're both going to go to the playoff. Would you then expect Nick Saban and Kirby Smart to empty the barrels in Atlanta in the SEC championship game, or would you expect them to hold something back, even though they are football guys who both value winning an SEC title, knowing that they're going to play each other down the road? Because I'm with you. I don't think there's anybody who's even in their stratosphere right now.
I thought about this yesterday, Jared. I'm so glad that you brought this up, because the idea of an SEC championship game looking like a Week 17, the old Week 17 NFL game with a team that's already clinched the division and they rest their starters, is hilarious to me with these two teams. And it would make a mockery, quite frankly, of college football if that was the case. If they got to an SEC championship and they're both undefeated, they know they're going to be in the college football playoff, and they played it that way, I think that would be incredible. It's not going to happen because there is value to being 1 seed in the college football playoff. And there's a but I think from a practical standpoint, it wouldn't make a lot of sense they're going to go out there and they're going to go both barrels blazing, ready to go, play all their guys, try to win the SEC, try to lock up the number 1 seed in the college football playoff. I think all those things will be on the line. I'm excited. We'll be bringing Outkick the Tailgate to Atlanta for that SEC championship game. And I don't know that we've ever had a moment where it's this early in the season where we know the 2 teams that will be in it. I'm sure we have before. But I'm excited to see that atmosphere around Georgia and Alabama fans in that game, knowing, like you said, that it's not going to be the last time probably that they meet. They're going to meet shortly after that for bigger stakes in the college football playoff. But no, I think both Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, they'll go all out in that championship game. But it's a funny idea to think about.
Well, especially if you had an incentive in your contract that said that you got an extra $500,000 if you won the game, or $1 million if you won the game, might mean a little bit something. Who do you think the third best team? Chad Withrow, Outkick 360 with us. Who's the third best team in the SEC right now?
Oh man, I thought Florida. I thought it was for sure Florida before the Kentucky game, based on them playing Alabama so close. I thought they were for real. Kentucky's got an argument because they're undefeated and they've got a win over Florida. I still don't know what Kentucky really is. Mm-hmm. They throw for 87 yards in that game. They block a field goal and return it for a touchdown, and that's the difference. But I'm not sold on Kentucky. I think their defense is really good, but they don't have much of a passing game. They have to get the running game going to have any success. So I'm knocking Kentucky down a notch for that. Ole Miss and Arkansas had a claim going into last week. Man, I'm just going to go ahead and just say a team because I think you have a toss-up with all of them. Auburn probably has a claim also right now after that win at LSU. I still think it's Florida. I think Florida had the typical Dan Mullen hiccup against Kentucky, and I think Florida's mix of defense with a mobile quarterback in Emory Jones, if I had to pick one right now that if you put them head-to-head with every other team not named Alabama and Georgia that could run the table, and Dan Mullen's experience coaching quarterbacks and coaching offense, I would give a slight nod to the Gators. But, look, I think there's any one of 5 teams you could throw in the mix for that number 3 spot.
Well, I think it's true, too, because I'm excited about Arkansas Ole Miss this weekend only because I'm not ready to throw them out of this discussion, talking about the third best team in the league, because they got boat raced by Alabama and Georgia. Because when Florida plays Georgia, I think Georgia's going to kill them. And when Kentucky plays Georgia on CBS in a couple of weeks, I think Georgia's going to embarrass them. But I wouldn't throw those 2 teams, Arkansas or Ole Miss, out, though it does kind of feel to me like Arkansas. I think Arkansas got exposed because they're not good enough. I think Ole Miss got exposed not only because they're not good enough, but I think Lane Kiffin psyched himself out last weekend.
Yeah, I agree. I think Lane Kiffin, the whole popcorn comment, he says it's not planned, but it's in the back of his mind when he goes up there that he's going to do that. I think Lane Kiffin won that game saying, we're going to have to score 80 to beat Alabama, and we're about to go do it. And it just wasn't – the going for the 4th downs, I understand the mindset behind it, right? You got to score touchdowns, not field goals, especially on that first drive. You're going to need to score a bunch of points. But I think that it going in line with what you said about him getting himself overly psyched for that game, I think that part of it was evident with the going for the 4th down. And I'll say this, about who's third best in the SEC. I'll probably come back next week if you ask me this question, and I'll just say whoever wins this game because that's going to be fresh on our mind. I mean, if Arkansas goes in there and shuts down Lane Kiffin's vaunted offense and looks great, then it's probably going to be Arkansas. If Ole Miss bounces back and it's actually popcorn worthy in this game, then I'm probably going to say Ole Miss. So that's going to be a fun game to watch. I really think this weekend with that one and Auburn, Georgia, because this game on the road for Georgia, I mean, is this the last great chance for a close game before Alabama? Because I'm with you. I don't see Florida necessarily playing them close. I think you add in the actual hostile environment. Georgia has been on the road at Vandy this year. They were a neutral site against Clemson. So they haven't played an away game yet. That was a home game against Vandy. You've seen teams struggle with their first road atmosphere. We saw Alabama struggle after a year with no crowds or very few people in the crowds. I think that's going to be a factor for Georgia this week. So, look, I don't think it makes the game a one-score game in the fourth quarter, but maybe it makes it a little bit more interesting than it otherwise would be.
Do you think Georgia is immune to having Georgia moments like they did in the past? I mean, they are so freaking good. I think right now I would put Georgia over Alabama. Like if I were to rank them, based on what they've done, I would put Georgia over Alabama. I would take Alabama in a game because of the quarterback play. But that does not mean that Kirby Smart and Georgia, that they are not immune to a Georgia hiccup. You brought up the Dan Mullen hiccup. What about Georgia, the typical Georgia-ing down the stretch?
So here is the formula for the Georgia-ing to take place. They have to play a team that is physical and big enough up front to at least contain their rushing attack. Mm-hmm. If they can do that and they can force Georgia to be one-dimensional with either Stetson Bennett or JT Daniels, who I'm not in love with as a quarterback, and you can combine that with some sort of crazy play. Kentucky only beats Florida at home for the first time since 1986 because of a blocked field goal and a touchdown return on it. If you can have a pick six, a scoop and score, a special teams touchdown against Georgia, combined with your ability to slow down their run game, that's the formula for the Georgia to happen. I just don't see it taking place this year, Jared, because their defense is too good. I mean, you look at their stop rate percentage, it's over 93%. I mean, this is like World War II level football that we're seeing. Pre-World War II, defenses were stopping teams at this rate. It's ridiculous what they've been able to accomplish this year. So I think that defense probably makes them immune to it, but I just laid out the formula. It's got to be a team that's got enough dudes up front where they can slow down that rushing attack, force Georgia to be one-dimensional, and then get a break or two. That's a game-changing type play. That's the only formula for Georgia to actually be Georgia'd this year.
Chad Withrow with us, Outkick 360. I got some friends who are South Carolina friends that invited me over for the game tomorrow, and they're like, I said, guys, they're not going to win. Just so you know, South Carolina's not going to win. They're like, no, I think we've got a chance. I don't think South Carolina's very good, but I will say this. Last week, we thought that the Missouri game was the biggest toss-up left on the schedule for Tennessee, and Josh Heupel went in there and played the kind of ball that Josh Heupel sold when he was hired as coach. I was reading Trey Wallace's piece over at Outkick about Hendon Hooker. Chad, I was impressed. I know it was Missouri, and I know they fired their defensive line coach after the game, but I was impressed, with the offense that Josh Heupel promised and that we saw on Saturday. What do you think it meant for the Vols, and what do you think it means for the Vols down the stretch?
Look, it was impossible. I was at a bachelor party in Arizona, and I'm sitting around a living room with 13 dudes, and I think 12 of them were Tennessee fans. And the common theme was, boy, this is fun. Is this what Alabama fans feel like every week? Because you just knew Tennessee was going to score every time. They didn't punt in the game, which I think is the craziest stat from the game. They rushed for over 450 yards. They set a bunch of records. A lot of them went back to 1994 against Vanderbilt, where they had a big rushing game, their best performance since then. It was very impressive. And I think that's not the blueprint for what Heupel's offenses will always be, but that is the ideal. I think we saw now that is the height, right? If it's fully functioning, if a team's not getting lined up properly, if Heupel is on fire calling plays, if the quarterback's in sync with everyone, they're snapping the ball quick, that is what that offense can look like. I think we're going to see 2 or 3 of those a year. I've always thought that with Heupel, that they're going to run into someone that just cannot get lined up quick enough, and it's going to be a buzzsaw, and they're going to blow them out. On the flip side, I think there's going to be a game where they go against someone who's fully prepared, and they just can't get it going. And you've got some 3-and-outs, some 45-second 3-and-outs mixed in with that, and they're going to struggle. Maybe that's this weekend against South Carolina. They do have a good defense. I'm like you. Their offense has not been good. I don't think they scored 21 points on an FBS team so far this season. So I think Tennessee should win this weekend. But these are the games that make you nervous. Just like last week. I know we're going to get to this in the next segment, Jared, where you're going to crush me on my guaranteed pick of the Titans, which I was dead wrong about. But just like last week, the Titans and the Jets, it's the games where you should win that make you nervous, right?
Oh,
Missouri was nerve-wracking because it was a total toss-up. I thought Tennessee would win. I thought it'd be close. But I thought it was a toss-up game, so it makes you nervous. You absolutely should beat South Carolina. It makes you nervous. You're not nervous now as a Tennessee fan against Georgia or Alabama. No. You're only nervous about losing guys to injury in that game because there's no chance and no one's expecting you to do anything. But these are the games that make you nervous. And this is a huge one because if Tennessee wins Saturday, they're going 6-6. I'm not going to lose to South Alabama or Vandy. I think it guarantees them that. And if they win on Saturday with 2 straight wins, I'm not saying they don't have a chance against Ole Miss or at Kentucky either, from what I see. So it's a big game for Josh Heupel, and I'm like you. It was thoroughly impressive the way they just dominated Missouri. And I'd say on defense also, they shut down Missouri's rushing attack. Missouri's had I think the fifth best offense in the SEC, fourth or fifth, coming in, and Tennessee played very well defensively. So it was a great all-around game.
Chad with our Outkick 360 with us. He did bring up his guarantee of the Titans victory, which we will get to coming up next. But more importantly, this one feels like, and again, I mean, Chad's history with Urban Meyer goes back way, way back. But, I mean, this one feels like a no excuses to lose. We'll get to that coming up next. Chad Withrow with us from Outkick 360. Stillman & Company. We're delivered by TriStar Moving Fireball Hot Take Friday at ESPN 1025. The game. Welcome back. Stillman & Company, delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025, the game on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. So last week, Chad Withrow, Outkick 360, came on the program, and I told him I was nervous about the Jets. I was nervous. And then he said, don't worry, 2 touchdowns. And I spent my weekend still a little worried about the Jets. But every time I got worried, I thought about Chad saying 2 touchdowns, even though I picked the Jets to win. And Mark Howard thought I was crazy on the pregame show on Sunday. And then the Jets won. And I got a text message while Chad was on last week from Sean Reese, Floyd's son, who said that Chad's cockiness was the kiss of death for the Jets game on Sunday. So, Chad, what did you think when you watched the meltdown of all meltdowns in the Meadowlands last week?
I honestly only thought about my hit with you last week where I guarantee victory. And the moment I did it, I was thinking, oh, this is going to go bad. But then I thought to myself, no, it's Chad, it's the Jets. There's no way the Titans can lose to the Jets. It's the Jets. This is the FCS opponent for an SEC school. No way the Titans are going to let down again. And look, they let down. Sean Reese is right. Look, I don't play for the team. I don't coach for the team. I'm not the general manager for the team. So my cockiness should not affect the team. But honestly, I think there's some guys on that team that probably thought the same way that I was thinking going into that game. And I'm getting tired of we had this discussion yesterday on the show of Paul Kuharsky said it, in fact. Well, they've learned their lesson now. Now they've learned their lesson. I know this Titans team have learned the lesson. They're going to go and kill Jacksonville. And I keep thinking, did they not learn their lesson in Cincinnati a year ago? How many times do you have to be taught this lesson? Because it's not just losing these are really bad teams, right? It's one thing to lose to a 5-11 team. That Cincinnati team a year ago with Joe Burrow, often injured, was terrible. This Jets team is terrible. They're going to go out there this week and get killed. It's a really bad football team. And the Titans' ability to make rookie quarterbacks or backup quarterbacks look like John Elway is remarkable to me. So it's been a very difficult week for the Titans, I'm sure, and they've taken shrapnel from a lot of places. But look, I'll take my shrapnel now because I thought the Titans had graduated past this. I thought even without A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, they were going to run the ball for 185 yards with Derrick Henry. Defense was going to step up against a bad defense, sack Zach Wilson a bunch, get a couple turnovers, and the Titans would win by 2 or 3 scores. And the opposite happened. They had a chance to put them away in the first half, settled for field goals, let the Jets hang around, and for that reason, it was a terrible loss.
I think what we've got to figure out, and Paul brought this up a couple of weeks ago, is when the Titans have no chance in a game, or they're playing one of the best teams in the league, or they're injured and everybody says that they can't win, Vrabel has them prepared and they go out and give you the best performance of the year every single year. And yet when they play a team like the Jets or even the Colts that came in here 2 weeks ago, that was not an NFL team with all their injuries. Vrabel cannot get those boys ready to play. And I don't know what it is about him. He's supposed to be this expert motivator. And it's like every time they play a team like the Jets or the Bengals or the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen's rookie year, or all those crap teams they lose to, I keep looking at the one constant, which is Vrabel, and I keep wondering, okay, you played on the Patriots, and every time that you guys played the Dolphins or the Jets or the Bills, you were clearly the better team. You went out there and spanked them every time. Why can Vrabel not get these boys ready to play? Because if they lose Sunday, I'm going right to Vrabel. I don't even care how they lose. I'm going right to Vrabel if they lose to Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, this is one where I really wish the Titans were Patriot South. The way everyone joked when John Robinson and Mike Vrabel were initially together. I don't get it. And I sense this arrogance around that organization that is unjustified. This is not a franchise that's won a Super Bowl, ever. I don't get where they think that they've arrived because they make the playoffs. And, well, that's better than a lot of the league, so we're really good, and we can just roll out there and win games like this. I don't understand where it comes from because there's increasing evidence that they're going to drop a game like this. Like you said, again, I was wrong. I didn't think it could happen against this awful Jets team, but it did. But they continue to do it. And you say it's on Mike Vrabel. I say the John Robinson, Isaiah Wilson pick, followed up by Dylan Radins, who can't even get on the roster on Sundays with all those offensive line problems. This will end up being the equivalent of Derek Dooley not signing a single offensive lineman in a recruiting class. That's what I fear for John Robinson. This is going to doom the franchise for the next 2 or 3 years. And we're starting to see the cracks of that right now. They can't protect anyone. And at some point, we're 4 games in, Jared. They've played one good half of football all year.
Yep.
One good half. In Seattle, second half, that's the only time I can say the Titans look like the Titans of a year ago in that second half. They looked really good. They looked like the team we thought they were going to be in that second half. Other than that, they haven't played a good half of football. At what point is it they're just not playing well, or at what point is it just this is just who they are? We're going to find out more about that this Sunday, but I fear that we're just maybe seeing just this is who they are when the evidence is in your face week after week, half after half, considering they've only played one good half of football.
See, I was going to tell you that this Sunday will probably tell us. I mean, if the Titans don't go out there and blow out Jacksonville, then I think that there are some serious problems. Now, to your point, Are they roster management issues? I think there's probably some. I mean, they don't have a tight end and they don't have a right tackle. And I don't know how you can win in the NFL. Everyone's like, the red zone numbers have dropped. Yes, because Jonnu Smith had 8 red zone touchdowns last year. And it's not that they had to bring Jonnu Smith back. They don't have a starting tight end. And so there are some roster management issues. But I'm with you about the arrogance of the Titans. It's like they got to the AFC Championship game. And Floyd used to always tell me that making it to the AFC Championship game and losing is the worst because nobody ever remembers you if you get to an AFC Championship game and lose, and you're so close. Because you get to the Super Bowl and you lose, you have all the memories of the Super Bowl, and, you know, everybody's wearing Super Bowl logo hats, and you remember that great year. You get to the AFC Championship game or the conference finals, and nobody will remember you. And to your point, I mean, I do think that there's been a little bit of arrogance since that AFC Championship game of, hey, trust us. We got to the AFC Championship game in 2019. Trust us. And I'm like, I don't see Dean Pease and I don't see Arthur Smith, and that makes me a little nervous. And I think you're right about the arrogance issues. And if they don't blow out Jacksonville after everything that's happened with Jacksonville this week, I think there are some real problems with the team.
Yeah, and look, if you're ever going to be humbled and you're not humbled by that Jets performance, I don't know what's going to humble you. So I think that has to humble them a bit. And you're right about Jacksonville. Big proving ground game. And here's what – see, now I'm going to be the one that's nervous about Jacksonville when you're probably not this week. Flip side of last week. Trevor Lawrence is a better quarterback than Zach Wilson. And we just saw Zach Wilson look like the Zach Wilson of BYU last week. Jacksonville just almost beat Cincinnati on the road. I'm a little bit nervous about what the Titans are going to make Trevor Lawrence look like in this game with his ability to run and throw. So I think the Titans win, but I'm a bit nervous about this game.
If the Titans lose, I said this on the show earlier this week, if the Titans lose to Jacksonville, I think someone's losing their job Monday, and it might be me. Like, it might be – like, it might be – and the thing that's crazy about Vrabel, if they lose, to your point about Trevor Lawrence, and I've got a rule on the show that you can't get in trouble for something you haven't done yet. But if they lose because Trevor Lawrence looks like Zach Wilson did last week, then I think Shane Bowen has to go. And I don't think there's any excuse at that point. I think that you've got to make the change at defensive coordinator, and yet I know in my heart Vrabel will never do it. And I think it's amazing because they fired the last guy because he wouldn't change his coordinators, and yet I just know Vrabel will never do it, and I'm not sure there's anybody over there that will force Vrabel to make a decision like that.
Well, at some point, you got to look at Todd Downing. I mean, I'm not saying fire the guy, but if you've got someone else in that staff that could call plays, you may need to work on switching that up if, again, the worst case scenario happens, they lose to Jacksonville this week. Jonathan Hutton had a great stat where he looked at percentage of third down plays, the most third down plays played on offense by skill position players across the league. And the list was, Keenan Allen and Jacoby Myers and guys you would expect that are playing on third down. And the only team that had 2 players on the list were the Titans. Those 2 players were Jeremy McNichols and Chester Rogers. That's odd. They are completely telegraphing they're throwing the ball every time Jeremy McNichols is in the game on third down. So, look, I think there's some things that need to be worked out on offense too. But let's not go there yet. Let's see what happens Sunday. Then we can come back and fire people, or you can fire yourself on Monday, depending on what happens.
Somebody's getting fired. What do you make about Derrick Henry's workload? I mean, the totals, you brought up McNichols being on the field, and you're right that it is a telegraph. I mean, McNichols had 1 carry for 11 yards against the Jets, and I'm looking at Derrick Henry's workload. And obviously, Derrick Henry's a better running back, but I'm thinking maybe give Jeremy McNichols the football to run with a little bit more, and Derrick Henry's on pace for 480 carries this season. I know he's built differently. I know that maybe he's different than Sean Alexander and different than Larry Johnson and different than all these other guys, but it doesn't feel sustainable to me. I do think that they'll rely on Derrick Henry a lot this week, but I do wonder at what point do they have to kind of bring it down a notch with how much they're relying on Derrick Henry.
It's a concern. I mean, I'm with you. He's obviously different. He's physically different. He's avoided injury throughout his career. So I think the only hope with that is that he's just different than those guys. And he's not going to reach that carry threshold where everyone starts to go downhill. And he's going to ultimately be fine. But, I mean, you got to be concerned about it because right now their game plan is let's run Derrick Henry into the ground while we have him. And I don't think that's necessarily a dumb game plan if you're the Titans based on his ability. But at some point, you feel like there's going to be a law of diminishing returns with him if this continues.
It's like throwing a guy 9 innings every game. At some point, that arm's going to give out. Chad Withrow with us, Outkick 360. What do you make of Tannehill so far? You brought up Downing, and the receivers have been out, and the protection issues are not just him. It's not just the line. There's a lot involved in this. But Tannehill's been a little sloppy with the football this year. What do you make of what you've seen out of him, and how much are you worried that Arthur Smith not being here may have hurt Ryan Tannehill?
I think there's no doubt that Arthur Smith not being here is hurting Tannehill and the entire team. I said this about Dean Pease. I'm never going to make the mistake of undervaluing a good coordinator again, because when Dean Pease left, the drop-off was huge from one year to the next, and we saw it immediately. And I knew when Arthur Smith left, in the back of my mind, I said, Dean Pease. This cannot be a Dean Pease level drop-off. And it has been. I think the passing game especially. Now, look, that's in part because of A.J. Brown, slow start, got injured. Julio Jones hasn't really been available, hasn't done as much as we thought. They lost some personnel also, but it's got to be better. And this is counterintuitive to today's NFL. I want to see Tannehill run more. I don't want to see him in the pocket as much. Roll him out, give him a run-pass option. He's been very effective when he takes off and runs throughout his career, but this year also. I mean, that sounds kind of sad at this point that you're going to have to really start running the quarterback more. But if you want to eliminate some of those carries for Derrick Henry and do some different things and keep him out of harm's way where at least he's looking forward at tacklers and not just sitting there blind and getting hit every time he drops back, I think you need to run Tannehill a little bit more. But, look, he's not been that impressive either. I mean, all those factors that you laid out, they contribute to his lack of performance this year. But, I mean, put him on the list of guys who haven't been as good as they should be either. Now, he's way down the list because of everything going on around him, but he's on the list.
Last one for you, Chad Withrow with us. Your thoughts on Taylor Lewan versus the fans and his complaining about it and his performance as the left tackle?
I think it's ridiculous. If you're going to wear a boss hog outfit and you're going to, ask people to call you dad, and you're going to sign a contract like that, which I do not begrudge anyone for making as much money as possible, good for him, then you got to handle this part of it too. It can't be one-sided. You can't put out a hype video of some movie clip when you beat Seattle and then disappear and not speak to the media and walk away from everything. And then when you do speak to the media, whine about, fans booing you when that happened. I also think the new Titans PA guy was a moron to announce his return in that game. I mean, I've never seen that before. I've never seen an offensive lineman announce to a crowd to return. So he kind of hung him out to dry with that one. I'm sure that he's probably learned from his mistake. That was his first game at the time. But look, he's got to be better. He's got to be better. And I'm fine with Taylor Lewan's personality. I'm fine with him talking, but you got to handle it both ways. And it's not good enough just to leave a poor performance and send out one blanket tweet every time. Guys, I suck today. I promise I'll be better. Sorry to everyone. Boom. And then not read your replies and go away and not speak to anyone. No, you got to be more accountable than that. And when you talk the talk and you wear the boss hog outfit and you go out there and get whipped and people boo you in your home crowd, and the boos are going to be louder. When you're that loud, the boos will be louder, and sometimes the cheers are louder too when he's good. So you got to be able to handle it better than that. I'm not a big fan of his performance or what he's done talking-wise off the field so far this season. He's got to be better, just like a lot of other players.
I said last one, but I lied because I remember when I was really young, you told me your first ever interaction with Urban Meyer was, what was this, 20 years ago maybe?
This was, man, you're really, you got me a lot. 20 years ago, Jared, I was 19. So, no, I was a sophomore at Tennessee at that point. This was 15 years ago. This would have been right after. So I'll quickly share the story. This is right after Florida won the title in 2006. So this is probably February of 2007. It's the coaches convention at the Gaylord Opryland Hotel. And I'm booking guests for George Plaster's show at the time. Mm-hmm. I get Mac Brown on. I get Philip Fulmer on. I get Jim Tressel on. All these coaches, very polite, very nice, coming on, join the show. We're right there sort of in the lobby. So I go up to Urban Meyer. And he had just gotten done speaking to a big group of coaches, and he was talking to a woman that was with Florida, sort of off to his right. I was waiting for him to finish talking to her, And I stepped in and said, "Hey, Coach, Chad Withrow," and extended my hand to introduce myself to ask if he'd join the show. And he, I'm not even kidding, guys, looked at my hand, like looked down at it like it was dirty, and then did not shake it and said, "I'm talking to someone here," and turned his back to me. That was my one interaction with Urban Meyer. But continue, please.
So your thoughts on Urban Meyer this week?
Look, the whole glass houses thing and stones and all that. Like, I'm not here to judge Urban Meyer or, condemn him for whatever, happened in that video or whatever did or didn't happen after that or before that or whatever. But I will say this. My problem with Urban Meyer is consistent. He has a total lack of self-awareness, complete lack of self-awareness. When he goes on Fox and he starts preaching about accountability and discipline and everything else, I am laughing at the TV, thinking about Aaron Hernandez and all of those Florida players that were arrested, that were barely disciplined, that would have been kicked out of numerous other programs, but they could play, so they stayed. He is so full of it, and he has convinced himself that he's almost Pope-like in how – I think there was a Pope Urban at one point, by the way, but he's convinced himself he's the Pope, and everyone that listens to him is his congregation. And he doesn't realize the lack of self-awareness that shows. And I think this just brings it to light. And now if he doesn't adjust and he's not truly humbled by it and he doesn't talk to his team openly about it, a guy who criticized Trevor Lawrence for going to a bachelor party in Las Vegas in the offseason, and then this happens, if he doesn't recognize that, he's never going to have the respect of an NFL locker room. He can go back to college because of the national titles and all the wins and everything else, and guys will probably listen to him. But he's never going to have the respect of an NFL locker room if he doesn't truly acknowledge the lack of self-awareness that shows.
Chad Withrow, Outkick 360, Outkick the Tailgate will be in College Station at Alabama A&M this weekend. Chad, appreciate you. We'll talk soon.
All right, thanks, guys.
Yep, Stillman & Company, Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's ESPN. Still in the company. That was Todd Downing. Oh, whoops. My bad. Exit. Get the X. Okay. It's be like a 5-minute segment. Going down in 3, 2, 1. Still in the company, delivered by TriStar Moving. There you go, Shane Bowen, Titans defensive coordinator, talking about Trevor Lawrence. So you heard Chad Withrow right there in the last segment. And Chad said that he was worried that Zach Wilson lit the Titans up so much last week. And again, we all know how I feel about Corey Davis. So Zach Wilson and Corey Davis light the Titans up, that he's more worried this week because he thinks Trevor Lawrence is a better player. You buying that?
I agree with him. I do think that Trevor Lawrence is a better player than Zach Wilson. But all things considered, like I don't think you can just look at Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson side by side and say, okay, well, if you lost to Zach Wilson, you lose to Trevor Lawrence. You have to look at all things considered. The Jets really did have a much better defense than the Titans will face against the Jags. You also have to consider everything that the Jags have gone through so far the past week since their last game. I mean, all of the media, all the national attention that has been on the Jags has not been football related. And the Jags overall are just not a very good team. And the Titans coming off of a loss to the Jets, I think that they're going to have a fire lit under their butts. So I agree with Chad and think that Trevor Lawrence is a bigger threat than Zach Wilson and may ultimately find more success in the NFL than Zach Wilson. But I don't think that that's a reason to think that the Titans will lose this game to the Jags.
I mean, I just think that Zach Wilson played out of his mind. You helped, though.
It was his best game of the season.
Sure, and I think you helped. Like, I think the whole thing, I said this at the top of the show, this has nothing to do with Jacksonville. Like, this has nothing, and you losing to the Jets on Sunday had nothing to do with the Jets. It had to do with you. And you demolishing Jacksonville, which we will make our official picks in about 5 minutes, but you demolishing Jacksonville, that's on you. Like, that one's on you, just like losing to the Jets. I mean, I think Trevor Lawrence is good. I told you that when the Rams lost to the Jets last year, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like Trevor Lawrence, becomes the Jacksonville quarterback, that I was legitimately worried about it. But at the same time, I guess I'm not too worked up or too been out of shape or too scared of Trevor Lawrence this week. Plus, who are their receivers? Laviska Shenault. DJ Chark's hurt, right?
I think he may be back this weekend.
Okay. And I told you I love DJ Chark.
Yeah, he's great.
I've told you the story about DJ Chark, right?
I don't think so.
So his either senior or junior year at LSU, he was at SEC Media Days, and LSU was bringing all their guys around Radio Row, and he sat down with us. And, like, anytime that we would do an interview like that, I'd be like, all right, you're on with Jared and the GM, Jared Stillman here in Nashville, former Titans general manager Floyd Reese. And then, they always say, like, hey, if there's anything you could ask for. And DJ Chark asked Floyd what it would take for him to make it in the NFL. And I just, like,
that is so cool.
My heart was, like, melting right there when I saw that. I was like, oh, and he did it like, and, these guys at SEC Media Days they're treated pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm watching this and I'm like, man. I'm like, that is so sweet.
That is very, very sweet.
And so I've always been a DJ Chark fan. I've always been a DJ Chark fan.
I've always been a DJ Chark fan.
This should be the message, right, to, like, everybody about how you treat people, Urban, how you treat people, because I do feel like, I'm a DJ Chark fan because of one interaction that we had with him. And so you hope that they play well. I guess I'm just not that worried about Lawrence. Not to knock on Lawrence, not to one way or another. I hear Chad. I'm not worried. Like, I'm not worried. If the Titans lose, it's the Titans' fault, and the Titans have told us everything we need to know about the Titans.
I mean, I wasn't worried about Zach Wilson either, and then we see what happened. But I don't think, like, let's say if the Titans do lose, I don't think it'll be because Trevor Lawrence is such an incredibly talented quarterback and because he's a better quarterback than Zach Wilson. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that the Titans have to beat themselves in this one. That's exactly what they did last week. The Titans beat themselves.
6-pack picks. We will make our official picks on the biggest games this weekend, including the Titans. Remember last week I picked the Jets. Everybody got mad. We will do that next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number here on the program. Stillman & Company. We are delivered by TriStar Moving on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. FanDuel Sportsbook app. That's my official sportsbook app. That's right. Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury are back in the ring tomorrow to complete their epic trilogy. And FanDuel Sportsbook is giving new customers 30-1 odds on either fighter to win. That's right. Now is the perfect time to give FanDuel a shot because you can win $150 on a $5 bet. I've told you all, I am rolling with fury. Because I saw the fight, the second one. With FanDuel in your corner, you'll always get exclusive odds boosts, great promotions, and much more. That's why they're America's #1 sportsbook and my official sportsbook app. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and use the promo code JGM to get in on all the action. That's promo code JGM. 21 and older and present in Tennessee. New users only. $10 first deposit required. Must wager in a designated offer market. Max bonus $150. Bonus for Tennessee users fulfilled in site credit within 72 hours. Tennessee site credit expires 14 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line 1-800-889-9789.